press pause, put the controller down. It's time to talk about something extra. My name is TJ Leo.
And I'm Andrew.
And this is Press Pause Extra. Sort of a, what would you call it? A sideshow of our main podcast?
Stuff that doesn't really fit in. Stuff that doesn't, I would say, I don't know if you would say, but I would definitely say, because I have something to say about what's on screen right now, live up to the usual standard of quality that I think we should hold ourselves to.
I would say it is a smaller, truncated, topic of the week only kind of a thing, where we discuss and have fun with a very specific topic. We're not here to talk about anything timely. You know, we're not here to talk about what's in the news or anything like that. We pick a topic and we focus on that topic, and that's kind of the idea for the show. It's not going to be a weekly show. It's going to be when we feel like it, when we have time for it. For our first Press Pause Extra, we are on TierMaker ranking the Final Fantasy mainline series.
Yeah, so I have something to say about this.
Oh, snap.
I think that tier lists are like really cheap, low-hanging fruit. I think that they're lazy, and I think that they're not boring, but it's the kind of thing that these sorts of discussions, I think, are best had when talking about something in depth rather than just trying to make a tier list of something. With that said, Trevor agreed, and I will hold him to this, to replace the tier names with the graphics of the final boss from Final Fantasy VI, which is a tiered enemy. And then we'll have the little goblin dude there at the bottom. And if you see this video with text in those tier categories instead of those graphics, I'm going to throw Trevor off a rooftop.
You'll feed me to Ifrit?
He'll probably be fine. There aren't a lot of tall buildings in our town, but nevertheless,
they're getting taller.
They are getting taller, yeah. The few taller ones are going up.
Yeah, I'm scared. I don't want to be here anymore. All right, well, let's kick things off. I like TierMaker lists. I don't think that they're just opinions. They're not the end of the world. They're not. They should never be taken seriously. Everyone's TierMaker list would be completely different. Just like everyone's top 10 list would be completely different. I think it's just a fun exercise more than anything else.
Yeah, this is the kind of format, and here's the reason why I'm so down on it in this particular way. I think this is like a perfectly legit form of discussing like perks in Call of Duty or something like that. But we're talking about entire games, not one very specific thing in a game. We're trying to rank an entire work of art against entire other work of art in a single episode of a podcast, which I think is woefully inadequate. But it is easy.
It is easy.
So,
it is easy. And I think for me, it's more of a catalyst to discussion.
Yeah.
More than it is about the list itself. It's more of just the conversations that it sparks.
Yeah.
I think. And it's a backdrop to the main... what's the word I'm looking for? The main attraction, which is the discussion.
But I've also talked about how I feel about lists in general.
Yeah.
You know that. You've heard that a million times. The audience has heard that a million times. So this is just me repeating myself.
But it's also why we haven't done any like top 10 lists. We've been doing mostly lists.
Yeah. When we do lists on Press Pause, it's not about which one of these is better. It's we want to talk about games in a specific category, whether it's canceled games or games that deserve a remake, and we just have to set a limit for ourselves so that we don't talk all night long.
Yeah, otherwise we could do like a list of 100 things.
Yeah, So we limit it to a list of 10 or 5, as we've done in a few cases, just to have some kind of organization. Because if we sat around and just said, "Oh, what about this one? Oh, what about that one?" It would be very disorganized, which is kind of what our Dreamcast episode was like. But That was more of a vibe episode anyway. We were trying to explain the vibe of the Dreamcast, and so...
And ironically, it was our shortest episode, so...
It was our shortest episode, but like I said then, we've been trying to get them shorter.
Yeah. Yeah,
that first episode that I was on was fucking long. It was almost 4 hours.
We
went longer than 4 hours. It got truncated by our software.
We went to 6, I'm sure.
And then before and after the show, when we combined that, talked. We did talk all night on that
Absolutely.
one.
Yeah.
So,
but also we haven't talked in like...
Yeah, we haven't had like a face-to-face conversation in a while. I guess technically we haven't had a face-to-face conversation in a while because I don't have a webcam hooked up.
It's face to the letter
Voice. A. Yeah. You're just staring at a blank void.
That's okay. Kind of feels like talking to a therapist.
Oh God.
I'm just staring into the void. All right. So for this tier ranking, the method that we're using, or the rule that we're using to rank them, is to combine our opinions of the game from an objective standpoint, but also taking into account which ones are our favorites, why we personally love them, and
don't love them.
Or don't love them. And coming up with sort of an average opinion.
Based around
those two things.
We are also ranking them based upon their original release.
Yes.
Which is massively going to affect the placement of some of these earlier ones, because they got a lot of re-releases with many improvements, and which substantially increased the quality of the game.
Yep.
That is not going to be reflected here, unfortunately, but we will discuss that when we get to them. We will say, look, this original version sucks. Go play this more recent version. It's the good one. It's actually a good game when you play it that way.
100%.
Yep.
And let's start with the game that started it all and almost ended it for Square.
I've heard that story isn't true.
Really?
Yeah, it's apparently something anecdotal that got passed around. What we're referring to is supposedly the reason the game was called Final Fantasy is that it was
their final attempt at
having a
surviving.
Hit, that then in fact became a hit. Apparently that is not true, and it is apocryphal.
Now you know. See, we've already learned something.
Yeah.
So the original Final Fantasy debuted in Japan in December of 1987, only 6 months after I was born. Mm-hmm. Which is makes me feel old.
Yeah.
Slightly. It didn't come out in North America for 3 years. July 1990.
Was it really that late?
It was that late, apparently.
Huh. Mm-hmm. I thought it came out in, 89. Okay.
July 1990 in North America.
Well, that explains why they skipped 2 and 3 and went straight to 4. They'd have been playing catch-up forever.
So, the original Final Fantasy game, I don't have a huge amount of experience with. I definitely played it. I played it on... I didn't play the original. I definitely did not play the original. I played the re-release on... which I guess is basically the original. The Wii Virtual Console version.
Oh, it was the NES version?
Yeah.
Okay, then you've played the original version.
Yeah, so I've technically played the original, just not at the time.
Yeah, I didn't play it at the time either. So funny thing is, you basically, technically, introduced me to the Final Fantasy games, kind of. The first Final Fantasy game I ever had any experience with was Mystic Quest.
I was going to say we should have had that on this list just for nostalgia.
No, we shouldn't have.
Final Fantasy Adventure, I think it's called in other...
I fucking forget. It's called different things in different places, but that did not give me a great impression of the series at first.
No, that game sucks.
And it wasn't until after I played Super Mario RPG that you were like, yeah, this is from the same people who made Final Fantasy. You should play it. And I was like, okay. And then I played 4 and I was like, oh, these are what these games can do.
Yeah.
Okay, now I get it.
I don't remember that being the I thought you introduced me to it, but
no,
it's been so long, man. It's crazy.
Oh, I should also one more thing we should clarify.
Yeah.
When we are ranking these games, should we look at them through the lens of the era that they were released, or through the lens of right now today?
I think we should do a combination of both. How much it holds up. Do the same thing. We're gonna kind of amalgamate take into account all those things.
That's fair.
And I think it stands up today. I don't think it's a bad game at all.
Final Fantasy 1 does hold up. I have
Yeah.
played it through. It is pretty good. It's a little basic by today's standards,
It's very
which is
basic,
why
yeah.
I bring up from what era are we judging this?
Yeah.
But at the time, it's a pretty big deal. Dragon Quest was out. I can't remember if Dragon Quest 2 was out at the time, or if Final Fantasy came out between them. But Dragon Quest, which was a tremendous success, only had one playable character. And I believe you only ever faced one enemy at the time. I haven't played the Dragon Quest games nearly as much as I've played the Final Fantasy games.
Same.
But Final Fantasy was like, you can have multiple characters and multiple enemies. And it wasn't the first game to do that. I mean, the Ultima games had been doing that before Final Fantasy or Dragon Quest, and obviously Dungeons & Dragons had been doing it even before that.
Yep.
But as far as video games go, made in Japan, it was a pretty novel thing at the time.
Very. Yeah.
Different character classes that you selected at the beginning of the game, with
4 party members.
you had 4 party members.
Farty members. Whoa.
6.
What's a farty member?
Blah, blah, blah. You had 6 classes, 4 party members, and then they have different quote-unquote abilities. It's mostly stats and whether or not they can use magic and which spells they can use.
Yeah.
But it does make a difference. Like, you could, have a mixture of different characters. You could go all for the same character, or if you're a crazy person, you could try doing a 4 white mage run
Yep.
for the insane people. So,
It was very flexible for being the first game.
yeah.
It had a lot going for it.
It's pretty refined. It's also really long for an NES game. I mean, it's about 10 to 15 hours, depending on your level of experience with it.
If only the RPG creators back then knew how long RPGs got.
Oh, God, yeah. But, I mean, it's about as long as you could reasonably make an NES game. It is one of the longest NES games, and by the standards of that system, it's absolutely packed with things to do.
Yeah. There's only 6 classes, though, which always surprises me, because when I think about classes in Final Fantasy, I think of like 100 classes.
Yeah.
So many different types of mages and all that stuff. But really, there was only the fighter, the thief, the black belt, which is basically like a monk, I think.
Yeah.
red
Martial
mage,
artist.
white mage, and black mage. So 3 mages and then some melee
3
classes.
physical classes,
Yeah.
yeah. But it's a good balance.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, as for where this game goes, it's difficult to say, because there's nothing really wrong with this game.
No.
So you can't really ding it for anything,
No.
but it's not as good as a lot of the later games. They just got better at making them.
No, I agree. I think, taking into account that it's still playable today, it's still enjoyable today, but it's not like groundbreaking, but it is very refined.
It was groundbreaking for the time, but it's not
Yeah.
groundbreaking by today's standards. But it's also, that's because it helped break a lot of that ground.
Agreed.
Like, if you had never played Final Fantasy until like just recently, like if you've played it for the first time today, it would feel incredibly generic and standard to you. But that's
Some of the
because
music's fantastic, though.
Oh, the music is fantastic, but my point is, this is one of the games that made those things generic and standard.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of that stuff, a lot of the formula, did exist before, but it was still novel at this point, and now it's quite standard. So if you look at it through today's lens, it looks very meh. But you have to take into account it's over 30 years old, and it was a pretty revolutionary thing when it came out. So
Yeah. So much is based on this game that came after it. It's very very seminal in that way,
yeah.
I think that's the very definition of mid to me. It's right in the middle.
It depends if you're using mid how the kids use mid.
Well,
today.
I ain't no kid.
Yeah, we've established that rule.
I ain't no child.
I guess because of that, we would have to put it right in the center.
Yeah,
because
and at the end, we can definitely look at this and go, "Do we like this?"
yeah,
And we can do some.
we're not
swaps.
locked in.
No, we're not locked in until the end. We'll review all of our spots, at the end. So I will put Final Fantasy 1
Right
at
in the
mid
middle.
tier. All right.
Okay, now Final Fantasy two.
Final
So
Fantasy 2, what a
here's
poor sucker.
yeah. So this is why I made the point of saying that we're judging them based on the original release, because this game in its original form is trash. This game is
Yes.
terrible,
Yeah.
and there is a reason for that. So
Broken.
yeah.
Straight up broken.
So the way that this game is designed, it doesn't use experience points like Final Fantasy 1 or really any of the subsequent games where you get experience points and your character levels up as a whole. Instead, you gain levels in different abilities and different stats by exercising them. So if you want to increase the strength of your physical attacks, you use a lot of physical attacks, and eventually at the end of a battle you'll get a message saying that, so and so's strength went up. If you want to make your magic more powerful, use a lot of magic, and eventually you'll get a message saying so and so's magic power went up.
Which in theory sounds very cool.
In theory sounds fine. The problem is that they made it so you had to exercise those stats so much that it took fucking forever to make any progress. And the end result was that you spent like 10 times as much time grinding in this game than you would in any other RPG. It's miserable.
Yeah, and if you play the game the way it was originally designed, you're actually encouraged to not encounter anyone, because the further you get in the game and the higher your experience level gets, the harder the difficulty scales to your level and your abilities. So the game actually gets harder the more battles you get into.
Yeah, it's a system that makes sense on paper, but when it actually comes to execution,
The math just doesn't work out.
It's painful.
However,
Later releases, on the other hand,
it's true.
they've looked back and they've said, yeah, we fucked this up. We can do better. And every subsequent release of this game on the WonderSwan, the PS1,
Game Boy Advance,
Game
I
Boy
think.
Advance,
Yeah.
PSP, every single release of this game has tweaked the way that it works much towards the better. And so if you play any of the versions that are available now, you will have a significantly better experience. And guess what? It turns into a pretty good game when you fix the utterly garbled, incomprehensible mechanics.
Yeah.
I've actually been casually playing the PSP version recently. Just, whenever I'm like, I've got 5 minutes, I'm waiting, for someone or something. I just go in and I play a little bit of it, and I've been having a lot of fun with it. I've played it quite a bit before. I've played the GBA version quite a bit, but we're not ranking them based on that. We're ranking them based on the original version.
Yeah, and to be clear, so that there's no confusion, this is not the North American Final Fantasy II. This is the actual Final Fantasy II.
Do we need to make that disclaimer still?
I hope so, or I hope not. I should say. It only came out in Japan in December of 1988, which is kind of hilarious because that's only like a year after Final Fantasy I.
Yeah, games were simpler back then. You
Yeah.
could kick out a whole new game in a year.
Yeah, and this game does deserve a little bit more credit for the fact that it introduced a lot of music that would be like classically used in the future of
Chocobo
the franchise.
music.
Chocobos in general were introduced in Final Fantasy II. Sid was introduced in Final Fantasy
recurring
II.
character.
Yeah. So, it definitely deserves more praise than it gets, but I can totally understand why. The fact that the game basically tells you not to fight to make it easier.
Yeah.
It's like it's like I want the combat to be fun. I want to enjoy that. So it is a little
It's
broken.
also the first game in the series to have specific characters instead of just blank slates that you
That's
create.
true. Yeah.
And a story associated with that.
Yeah. Something that would happen a lot in future.
Yeah, it would become the standard with Final Fantasy IV onwards. Mm-hmm. But as far as the Famicom version goes, it's no good.
Yeah, now here's the question. Is it so bad that it's trash, or is it just low?
No, it's trash.
You think it's that bad? Eh?
It's unplayably bad on the Famicom. It's
Unplayably
terrible.
bad.
Yeah, it's so bad I can't even speak properly.
Blad and farty.
Yep. That should have been we should make that a D&D character.
Hey, they could be cousins.
Yeah.
All three of them. Blad, Farty, and Elvas.
Oh no, I think Blad Farty is
just Blad Farty. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like it. All right, I don't think I can fight you on that. It sucks for it because it does so many good things, but
it gets so much. Yeah, like this was part of the reason I was like, man, it's too bad we're just rating it based on that. But if we were talking about every single version of these games, we'd be here forever. So I understand why we got to do it like that.
I might later on give it a fight to put it at the lowest low tier, but we'll see how everything shakes out in the wash.
You're not going to find anything here that's worse than that.
That might be true. Well, maybe not. There is one.
Oh, come on.
We'll get to it.
Yeah, okay.
All right, for now, we will keep it in the goblin trash.
Yes.
All right, moving on to Final Fantasy III.
I love this game.
Actually Final Fantasy III again, not Final Fantasy III North American Edition.
I love this fucking game.
This was the first Super Nintendo Final Fantasy.
No, it was on the Famicom.
Yes, it was.
Yep. It was a late Famicom release. I don't know if the Super Nintendo was out in Japan when this game came out, but it was pretty close because this one came out in 1990.
I completely lost my Final Fantasy III info page. That's why I don't know why it skipped that. There we go. All right. Yeah, Final Fantasy did came out April of 1990, which is crazy because that's only 5 months after Final Fantasy II? No, Final Fantasy II came out in 88.
88, yeah.
Wow, I wonder why this one took them 2.5 years.
Well, it's...
Or a year and a half, sorry.
It probably has something to do with the fact that it's a way bigger game.
Yeah, 2.5 years.
This is an utterly massive game for the system, and it also has the first incarnation of the changeable job system. You go through the game, you encounter the crystals, you unlock new classes from them.
This is the only one I don't have experience with.
Really? Mm-hmm. You haven't even played the DS version?
I tried, but I cannot stand the chibi bullcrap, so I couldn't do it.
That's unfortunate. I really like the character designs in that game.
Yeah.
I thought they did a really good job with that because that's the same illustrator who did like the Final Fantasy Tactics character design and the Final Fantasy 12 character design.
Oh, I like Final Fantasy 12 visually.
That's Akihiko Yoshida, I believe. Let me just confirm that it.
I mean, it's not. I don't like. I don't think the game's ugly by any stretch of the imagination. I just think I'm just not a fan of the chibi style of games.
Yes, it was Yoshida.
Yeah. From a technical standpoint, it looks fantastic, especially for being on the DS. I think it was. Yeah, but you know what's weird is that the DS version's not even listed on the Wikipedia.
That's weird.
That is very weird.
But here's the thing. Here's the thing about this game. There's no bad version of it. The Famicom version is excellent. It's absolutely playable even today. And the DS version is also fantastic. They are very different games in some ways, though. The character classes have been totally rebalanced in the DS version. In the original version, every character class that you got was a step up from the last batch. So every time you got to a crystal and got a new selection of jobs, they would generally be superior to the previous crop. Which means that you do definitely feel like you're getting upgrades in terms of power. But it also means that a lot of job classes are just left on the table as being not particularly useful beyond a certain point. And it kind of culminates at the end of the game. You get the ninja and the sage class, and the ninja class is the ultimate melee fighter, and the sage class is the ultimate magic user.
Gotcha.
So everybody just makes two of their characters ninjas and two of them sages. This is even reflected in Dissidia, where I forget what they call it, but the state where you transform into a more powerful form briefly has the Final Fantasy III character turning into either the ninja or the sage.
Yeah, it says that all 4 characters begin as Onion Knights.
Yes.
Interesting. This is the first game to include the steal and jump commands in Final Fantasy, as well as summons.
Mm-hmm.
Now I want to play this game.
Yep. The DS version, the character classes, they're not straight upgrades. They all are more or less balanced and viable at any point in the game. You don't feel like you're getting that massive power upgrade, but it does mean that you have a lot more variety in your strategies, and you don't have an ultimate class that you unlock at the end of the game. So you are free to kind of mix and match your party as you wish, which leads to a number of different play styles that you can have. You know, if you want to be more magic or more physical or a combination of the two, it's not just a matter of, oh, well, these are the best classes, so I should use them, and there's no reason not to. Enemies are also rebalanced, because due to the polygon budget of the DS, they could only display 3 enemies in battle. So in any battle in the original game where you'd have more than 3 enemies, they had to rebalance that enemy's health and stats and stuff to accommodate for that. So the challenge in the battles is also a little bit different. But they're gameplay-wise, they're both excellent games, and I honestly can't recommend one over the other. They're both great.
I wonder why they never released this in North America at the time.
Well, Super Nintendo was coming out.
Yeah.
They probably wanted to... I'm sure that Nintendo wanted to focus on that. There were actually plans to release 2 and 3 in North America.
Yeah, it is weird that they didn't release 2 or 3.
Yeah, but I think it just... too much was
happening.
happening.
1, but not 2 and 3. Very weird.
Well,
Very
with
strange.
2, at least I can.
Yeah, I mean,
wouldn't have
it
released
didn't
it either, or at least I would have massively changed the way the game worked.
Yeah.
But I think it was just kind of happening really fast, and the North American market wasn't viewed as being as receptive to role-playing games, which I don't think is an entirely fair assessment. But when you compare that to the way the Japanese market responds to role-playing games, I can see why you'd make that assumption, because they do crazy well in Japan, and at least at the time, didn't do that well in North America.
Yeah.
I can understand a Japanese businessman looking at the sales of RPGs in Japan and then seeing them do like half that in North America and saying, oh, well, they just don't like RPGs there. It's like, well, it's not that they dislike them, it's just that in Japan people really like them.
Yeah.
So,
well, I'll have to leave this ranking to you because I don't have enough experience with playing it, although you're making me want to play it.
You should absolutely play it. It is...
I might have it on Steam. So
I really can't recommend this one enough. It is easily the best of the NES games. It's fantastic.
Maybe I will play it and report back on Press Pause.
I think you should.
I think I should, too.
I think this should at least go in high tier.
Ooh.
It's that good, man.
All right.
Like,
Not high mid?
this is a... No. High.
No.
High. Because
Wow.
this is a game with 2 very different versions, and they're both fantastic.
All right. I will trust you. So I don't think I have a way of playing the original version, so I'll have to play the chibi DS version.
I mean,
I can
emulation
emulate,
is pretty easy. That's
Yeah.
how I played it. Because it didn't come out in North America.
Which version would you say is superior?
That's the thing. I can't say that one of them is superior because they're both different enough mechanically, but also both very good that I can easily recommend both, and I can't really say that one is better than the other. I like both of those systems equally. I think they both have their
Which
merits.
one has the better music?
Well, in terms of audio quality, the 3D version, of course.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, but it's the same compositions.
Yeah.
But it also, by the way, has the best renditions of that music on the NES. Like the Final Fantasy tracks that are commonly used in all three of those games sound the best in 3.
All right. Well, I think you've convinced me to give it a try, so I will. But without having any experience with it, I will have to secede.
Concede.
Concede. I was like, what the hell's that word? Concede to your placement of high.
I think you'll agree with me because it is.
I'll report back and
it's a game that plays like something. And I remember when I played it the first time, like 20 years ago. I remember thinking, this plays like something way more modern than when it's from. Like it feels very advanced in terms of its mechanics for an NES game. Although it was a 1990 game. So
yeah,
but I would honestly, in terms of quality, I'd put it alongside a lot of Super Nintendo RPGs. It's great.
Ooh. All right. Well, I will give it a shot, and I will let you know. How long is it roughly?
It's longer than the previous two.
Yeah.
It's been a while since I've gone through it.
Been a while.
At least 15 hours, I'd say.
Okay, not super long though. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
It's not as long as like Final Fantasy VII. That's for damn sure.
Yeah, I know that game's super long.
Yeah.
All right. Let's move on to Final Fantasy IV, which was my first Final Fantasy game. I want to say.
Yes, and my first good Final Fantasy game.
My first good Final Fantasy. So you played this before 3? Well, of course you would have.
Yeah.
Yeah. So released in July 1991 in Japan, and only a few months later, November 1991.
I believe it was
America.
a launch title for the Super Famicom in Japan.
It could have been. I'm not sure what the date was that the Super NES launched. Let me look that up, because it doesn't really specifically say launch date of the Super Famicom. No, November 21st, 1990.
Oh, okay.
So it was
a few months after.
9 months later.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, this was I think this was the first active time battle Final Fantasy.
Yes.
And it also gave all of the characters pre-chosen classes that couldn't be changed.
Yes.
You had to
except for the one.
Well, they changed story-wise.
Yeah.
But you couldn't decide to change them at any point in the game.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, man. This is the one I think that really like kicked this series into high gear. The music, phenomenal. The story,
the stakes of the storytelling.
Yeah, the stakes of the storytelling just fantastic. It was so cinematic for the time. Mm-hmm. You know, the iconic opening scene with the airships coming into, was it not Figaro? What was the name of the damn castle?
Baron.
Just, man, it's like one of those images you just don't get out of your mind. At least for players our age. I don't know about players.
It's a pretty iconic scene. It's
super iconic.
Yeah,
for sure.
It's a great game.
Yeah, I never played the After Years.
I've played it a little bit.
Yeah, I think it was only on phones and in the Wii shop. I think.
Well, it came out on other stuff. It's out on the PSP. There's a version of this game on the PSP that has both the original game and the After Years. The After Years is the sequel, for anyone who doesn't know. That came out like fucking 20 years later or something.
Yeah, there was also something called Interlude.
Yeah, it's basically a brief sort of setting up for the sequel.
The After, well, is the After Years a sequel or is it just like a prologue?
No, it's a sequel.
Epilogue?
It's you play as Cecil and Rose's son.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I never played that.
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah.
In
comparison to Final Fantasy IV, I mean, I don't know how you're supposed to.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
It is a follow up to an amazing game, which wasn't really necessary, but you know, Square was doing that kind of stuff back then, and it's not a bad game, so I won't say no to it.
No, for sure. Yeah, no, it's definitely one of the best RPGs of all time. In literally every way, like the leveling up system's great, the magic's great, the summons are great, the music is iconic and unforgettable. some of the best characters in Final Fantasy lore.
Yep.
I mean, the fact that like two of them change. Two of them? Yeah, two of them, right? Change classes.
Well, Cecil changes class.
Cecil changes to a paladin.
Yeah. Kain changes to a Holy Dragoon in the after years. He does not change class in the original game.
Isn't there a summoner change in that?
Oh, she goes away to another dimension where the summons live,
Yes.
and time passes differently there, so she grows up.
Right. Yeah. And then
Yeah,
she gains new abilities and stuff.
Yeah, she's like 10 years old when you find her, and then she's about 20.
What's her
when
name?
You find Radia.
Right, Rydia.
Yeah, you.
Is
you
it
find
Rydia
her-
or Rydia? I always said Rydia.
Well, I assume
I don't know.
I would assume with the hard Y in there, it's Rydia.
Rydia. Rydia. You say Rydia, I say Rydia.
Whatever.
Who knows?
But yeah, she originally has black magic and white magic, and initially she can't cast fire because she has trauma over her
Yeah, she's
village
scared.
being burned, which
Damn.
you technically did.
Yeah.
You didn't know.
No, it was an accident.
Well, no, it wasn't an accident, but you
Oh.
were an unwitting participant in genocide. I mean, it was.
Yeah, that's...
It was targeting an
Sure.
ethnic group.
Yeah.
So it's a genocide.
Yeah.
But in a story moment, because they need to get into a mountain that's frozen over, the path is frozen over, she has to dig deep and unlock her ability to cast fire, pushing through the trauma, which she does, and then you can cast the fire spell after that. But then she goes away, comes back, she's lost her white magic abilities because she didn't keep up with that, but instead trained her black magic, trained her summoning, and she becomes the group's black mage and its summoner.
Yep.
And she can do some pretty sick magic.
Yes, she can.
Now, the other thing about this game is that there were two versions released on the Super Nintendo. There was the standard version, and there was what was called the easy type version. And that's what we got in North America, which had significantly easier enemies, reduced cast times on the spells, and also had a number of the character abilities removed. You remember that when you go to Mount Ordeals to get Cecil to become a paladin,
Yeah.
and he faces his reflection, it has that like magic blast wave that it uses.
Mm-hmm.
That's an ability you could use in the standard version.
But they got rid of it in the...
They got rid of it in the easy version, which also became the North American version.
Why would they get rid of it?
To simplify the game for inexperienced players.
Ugh. They were
Which is a
still doing that?
Yeah, but they actually did that in Japan as
Oh,
well.
okay.
So
All right.
it wasn't just a North American thing. Although I wish they had given us the standard version. Yeah, and that sort of became the ability for Dark Knights in other games, was that you would sacrifice, because it takes some of your health to use it. It's not an ability that uses MP; it uses HP. So
It's like Blood Hunter in Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah, that kind of became the template for the Dark Knight class, which was to sacrifice HP in exchange for a powerful attack like that.
Gotcha.
You also had things like, oh man, I forget. No, I think the twin magic was still in the North American version, where you had Palom and Porum, the black and white mage
Definitely,
twins.
I remember that.
If they were both alive, you could use both of their turns to cast a powerful spell.
Yeah. I guess this is the first Final Fantasy as well that had a character death?
No, Final Fantasy II has one. Actually, Final Fantasy II has a few, but
From your party?
yes,
Oh, okay.
it's a temporary. So there's a character called Minwu in Final Fantasy II who is, because your third character, or pardon me, your fourth character is constantly changing out with a guest party member, whereas the first three are standard for the rest of the game. Minwu dies. Which is, why you need to get a new fourth party member, not to minimize that, but
Not to spoil a 30-year-old game.
30-plus-year-old game, yeah. Yeah,
Hmm.
it's like that Penny Arcade comic. Have you seen The Passion of Christ? Jesus dies.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's true. It's true. Yeah,
But as
doesn't Palom and Pelham die? In
they turn themselves into stone statues to
yeah,
stop the crushing. Jesus Christ! I've played this game so many times.
yeah.
The
Oh,
fact that I
it's
can
an amazing game.
go back and yeah, it is. But they eventually they get cured. I believe by
Oh
the
yes,
Mysidian elder.
that's
But
right.
Tella dies. He dies casting meteor.
Right. That's the old man, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, what a game, man. I one of them that was one of the first video games I can remember that actually kind of creeped me out, like legitimately. Like, I mean, I was a kid, but like
Yeah.
the cave with the mist monster.
Oh yeah.
Like, I remember that like just creeping me the hell out,
And then the mist coalesces into the dragon as the boss fight at the
yes,
end. And then the boss fight music kicks in, and it's
Oh,
like,
and
holy shit.
It was yeah, that was a moment. That's a moment.
It's incredible.
In gaming. Yeah,
It's fucking fantastic.
yeah.
That's also, is that the first one where the boss has a phase where if you attack it during this phase, it counterattacks? Because that was a thing they did in other Final Fantasy games.
I think it might be the first iteration of that. Yeah.
Because I definitely remember that being a thing in this game. I don't remember if it was a thing in the first three. It wasn't in 1 and it wasn't in 2.
I know it definitely wasn't in 1. Yeah, if it was in 3, you would be the only one who might know that.
There might be a boss that does that in 3, but it's not the first boss.
No,
Which is where it is the first boss here. It's also the first boss in Final Fantasy VI. It's the first boss in Final Fantasy VII. You know, the scorpion robot with the tail
Yeah.
that goes up? Uses that gimmick as well.
I don't know about you. It's been a while since I played this one, but I find this game pretty hard too. Like, it's not easy.
It can be challenging, yeah.
Yeah. You gotta a lot of going back to town to rest.
Yeah, I remember having difficulty with the King's Advisor, who turns out to be a monster in disguise.
Yes.
I remember having a lot of trouble with that boss fight back in the day.
Yep. Yeah. Did you play the chibi version of this? Because I think they did this just like Final Fantasy 3.
They did. I do have it.
I do as well. It's another one where I'm like, why did I buy this? I didn't like the chibi version.
Yeah, I have the PC version. I've played a little bit of it, but I haven't finished it.
Okay.
But I've played it on Super Nintendo, like God knows how many times. I've played the GBA version.
It's hard to beat a game that perfect on Super Nintendo in any other version. You know what I mean? Like, especially a chibi version. Like, if it was like a full remake.
Yeah, so that's the thing. The art style in the DS remake of 3 has characters that are proportioned to be that chibi style. Whereas in Final Fantasy IV, they just make their heads big. If you shrink their heads down to normal size, they look completely normal.
Oh, okay.
That was one of the first things I noticed when images of that game first came out, was like, they've just got normally proportioned bodies with giants' heads. It's like big head mode in GoldenEye. It looks just as weird.
So not as good as the visual style of Final Fantasy 3.
No. Because they did that with that being the intention from the beginning.
Maybe that's the one I played the chibi version of and not 3. Maybe that's why I didn't like it. I don't know.
Maybe.
I'll report back on Press Pause.
Yeah.
All right, well, I think... you have some more?
Yeah, just that the DS version, it's fine. I mean, it's basically the same game.
Yeah, just 3D.
It's got voice acting, it's got graphics that are 3D, but also kind of an art style that I don't completely vibe with, but it's still Final Fantasy IV. Like, it's hard to fuck that up.
It is true. This is true. And I think we both agree that this is God tier.
Absolutely. Yeah, 100%.
How could it not be God tier?
This was one of the best games I've ever played, like, really early in my life. Like, I was 9 years old when I played this game.
Yeah, this was a mind-blowing game at the time. It still is, honestly. Like,
yeah,
to go back and replay it, it's like, this was a perfect game.
Because I didn't get into RPGs until 1996. After I played Super Mario, like I just said, I played Super Mario RPG, and then I played this on your recommendation. So imagine being a 9-year-old kid and having really only played, pretty basic side-scroller, action-y stuff. Not entirely. I'd played some pretty deep story stuff before. but like
Nothing like this.
nothing this long. Like I played Loom, but Loom is like it's like a 4-hour game.
Yeah. No, this is epic.
Final Fantasy IV. This is like a 25-hour game. It's a roller coaster, man. It's huge.
I'm gonna want to play all of these games again now.
I know,
Talking about this.
Well, I've also been playing through a little bit of the PSP version of this as well.
Oh, there you go.
I just carry all this shit around on my phone all the time, so I can play it whenever the mood strikes me.
Whenever the mood strikes, which is probably every day.
It's
I don't blame you.
It's frequent.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on. Final Fantasy V. So this one I have a little bit of experience with, but definitely not as much as the rest of the cast.
This one I have a lot of nostalgia for because
I've heard it's very good.
It is fantastic. This game was one of the first times because I got into emulation like 25 years ago. I've been emulating for a long time. Not because of like, oh, I don't want to pay for this stuff. A lot of the games I already own anyway.
Yeah.
But it's like that battery back memory isn't what it used to be. No. And oh man, am I really going to want to get out this in order to play that? And my Super Nintendo is on the fritz, so I can't even do it if I can't even play the legit copies. On the Super Nintendo if I wanted to. And I
don't want to have to pay Nintendo 6 more times to play it every generation. So.
But no, Final Fantasy V was... the reason that this was a big deal to me is that this is one of the first times I'd played a game that had been fan-translated into English.
Oh.
And so...
Before you go on, I didn't do my intro. Never released in North America until the Game Boy Advance, I believe.
PlayStation version. Final Fantasy Anthology.
Oh yeah, PlayStation Anthology, that's right. It was originally released for Super Famicom December of 1992.
Another quick follow-up. And, man, getting to play a new Final Fantasy game, even if it was technically an old Final Fantasy game...
what did you mean by it was a quick follow-up? Oh, from the previous game.
Yeah.
I was going to say, because if we're talking from the Japanese release to the English release, this was a huge gap.
Yeah, no, I'm talking about from Final Fantasy IV to Final Fantasy V.
Yeah, it didn't come to North America for another 7 years.
Yeah.
Like 1999.
Which felt like an eternity back then.
Oh, yeah, it's crazy.
But
especially when they released 4.
Yeah.
Like, another just crazy weird decision to not, like... What were they thinking back then? Super weird. Man.
Anyway. But getting to play what was quote unquote a new Final Fantasy game, even if it was an old Final Fantasy game, it was like seeing into a parallel universe where they made a completely different set of Final Fantasies or something.
Yep.
It was amazing, and I played the fuck out of this game, and I loved it, and that's because it's a great game.
This was another Meteor related game, right?
Yeah, well, a meteor lands on the planet and brings with it a person who is trying to stop the villain. This game is similar.
So not Venom.
No, brings
the opposite.
brings Galuf. He's one of your party members. He also dies.
Everyone dies in Final Fantasy now, apparently.
But this game is similar to Final Fantasy III in that you go to the crystals and you get new jobs.
The job system returns,
and there's a bunch of them, and they're really good. And there's a whole system where you can master a job and then use the traits that you get from that job when using other jobs. So you don't just get abilities with jobs. You also get traits. Like being a black mage gives you like a certain, I don't know, it's like a 25% bonus to the power of your black magic spells. When you are customizing your characters, you can choose to import a trait like that even when playing as a non-black mage class. As long as you master the various levels of the job, right, you can import one of those traits or one of those abilities onto any other class. And so you can kind of multi-class in this game, and it offers a tremendous amount of customization. It's a lot of fun to mix and match the different classes and the different abilities to find the combination that works for your particular playstyle. It's a really great game with a lot of replayability.
This game also tweaked maybe not tweaked, but added to the active time battle system, because in 4 there was no bar that gave you a hint as to who was going to be next in the turn order. It was basically just nothing would happen, and then all of a sudden you get a menu pop up for the next player. But in this one, they added like the little loading bar, I guess is the best way of putting it.
Yeah.
That they also used in 6 to indicate whose turn was coming up next, how quickly they were coming up.
Yeah. We first saw that in North America in 6, but it did in fact debut in this game.
Yep. I think some new classes came in this one as well. The Blue Mage, the Time Mage, and the Mime. Mm-hmm. Those were never in previous games, although I don't think the Mime ever returned. I could be wrong, but I don't think so.
Dude, Go-Go in Final Fantasy VI, he's the Mimic.
Wasn't he one of the optional characters?
Yes.
Yeah, so I think we talked about this recently, that I never beat Final Fantasy VI and recently replayed it.
Oh, and speaking of which, Go-Go actually originates in Final Fantasy V. Because Mimic is also a secret class in this game. You get it from Go-Go. He's a secret boss that you fight to get it. You want to know how you win the fight and get it from him?
Sure.
At the beginning of the fight, he tells you to do exactly as he does. But he is a Mimic, so he doesn't do anything until you do something. So in order to do exactly as he does, what do? Absolutely nothing.
You just sit there?
He's not doing anything until you do something, so to do as he does, you do nothing. You just sit there. The battle, I think it has like a 5-minute timer. When that's up, he says, "Excellent, your mimicry is perfect." And then he gives
5 minutes? Oh.
Something like that.
That's awful. How would anyone figure that out?
Well, that's what makes it a secret.
Just sit there for 5 minutes? I can see, 60 seconds, maybe? Yeah. 5 minutes?
I forget exactly how long it is. But
I hope it's not 5 minutes. That would be terrible.
It's some number where you're... Yeah. Well, I mean, that's what makes it a secret, man. It's your reward for figuring it out.
That's fun. No, that's true. Yeah, we need more of that stuff in games.
Yeah. But that's how you get the Mimic job in that game.
We didn't talk about the party size in 4. It was 4 people, right?
It was 5 people.
It was 5 people? And that's how many it is in 5 as well?
No, it's 4 people.
It's 4.
4 is the only game. Yep. 4 has 5, 5 has 4. I know, it makes a lot of sense.
Thanks, Square. Appreciate that. Cool. All right. Well, you have way more experience with 5 than I do, so I can't really say where I would put this on the tiers. Well, where would you put it? Is this a low high or a high mid?
It's higher than that, dude. I would say, in terms of story, it's not as strong as Final Fantasy IV, but in terms of gameplay depth, it is much stronger because of all the customization you can do with the classes. Honestly, I'd put this in God tier, I think.
High?
Yeah?
High, or you didn't say God tier?
No, I said God tier.
No way.
Dude.
It can't be that. The story sucks. It's generic.
No,
it can't be God tier and have a crap story.
No, I didn't say the story sucked. I just said that it wasn't as good.
I'd have to fight you on that.
Dude, you haven't played it as much.
I'd say high. I can't put that in God tier. There's no way. 5?
I don't know, man. It gets really, really fun once you've unlocked a lot of jobs. Maybe it does drag a little bit at the beginning when you don't have as many, so you might be able to talk me down to high, but...
I would be okay with a high. God tier is scary.
Dude, once the game gets going, it's pretty fantastic. Right. Also, it has 3 worlds that you travel to.
That's cool.
Which are, all, spoiler alert, again, the same world that has been fractured into 3 realities and is then reunited at the end of the game. Or in the sort of third act of the game, I should say.
Yeah.
So the game map is constantly changing.
I'm surprised they didn't do a DS remake of this one.
Well, they did a GBA release that has more content and better graphics.
Oh. Interesting.
Worth playing.
Is that one, would you play that one over this regular Super Nintendo version?
Yeah, I would.
Yeah.
It's just a straight upgrade in every way. Same thing with Final Fantasy IV, by the way. But if you're going to play the GBA version of Final Fantasy IV, and this is really nitpicky, play the European version, because the North American version has a bug that can cause you to either double act in a turn in battle, or just eats your turn and doesn't let you do anything.
Oh, that's bullshit.
It doesn't happen very often.
Okay.
It happens
when
out
it
of
does,
like...
it can be annoying.
It happens like 1 out of every 50 turns or something. It's not super common.
That's significant.
But it does... It can happen. I will say, when it does happen, it usually gives me a double turn instead of eating it. But
I'll take that, though.
I have had it eat one of my inputs before, so...
All right. Well, I'll concede to a high. I don't think I could... I don't think I can...
It's basically just a better version of Final Fantasy III. And Final Fantasy III is a great game.
All right. Maybe. How long is 5? In comparison?
It's pretty long. Pretty long. It's, I would say it's probably about as long as 4.
4 was about, what, 20 to 25 hours, I'd say?
Something like that, yeah.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if I have time for that, but I definitely will play 3. I think I can fit that in. Mm-hmm. We'll see. I want to play both now, but
yeah,
I don't know if I can do that. We'll see. All right, let's move on to 6.
This is where it's going to be hard for me to be objective, because this is my favorite game of all time.
I mean, we can both. We don't even need to talk about it. It's in gotcha. I mean,
well, hold on now. I do feel a sense of responsibility. This game's jank as fuck. There's so many bugs. There's a lot of bugs in this game, man.
So, I recently played it, as we talked about. I didn't experience any bugs in particular. Nothing that, at least nothing that was like obvious. There might be some like XP bugs
ask
and
you,
stuff like that.
Did you play the Pixel Remaster version? Or did you play the Super Nintendo version?
Oh, that's a good question.
Oh, come on. It shouldn't be that hard to remember.
It was like 6 months ago.
Well, did you play it on PC?
No, you're right. It was the Pixel Remaster. Yeah.
Okay, well then that's
a
different story. But we're going off the original releases.
That's
remember?
True. I mean, I remember playing the original.
Yeah, we played it a bunch.
I don't remember any bugs though. Nothing game breaking anyway.
Well, you never tried to sketch an invisible enemy. That fucks the game up. That can do all sorts of crazy shit.
Oh, really?
Yeah. There's a lot of, and not even just bugs. There's a lot of oversights as well. Like I told you, I forget if it was during the podcast or afterwards, but I told you how you can beat almost any enemy in the game by turning them invisible and then using an instant kill spell. It nullifies so much of the challenge.
I wonder if they fixed that in the remaster.
I don't know. I haven't played the Pixel Remaster because I've played the fuck out of that game 10 million times, and I own multiple versions of it, and I don't really need to add another version to the collection.
I will say the Pixel Remaster was fantastic. I did.
It looks fine and it sounds amazing, but it's, you know.
Yeah, this game was huge.
Yeah, it's incredible.
It's twice as big as you think it is before you as you start playing it, which I didn't know. Even 20 years when this game came out, I didn't even get to that part.
94.
April 94, yep. In Japan, and October 94 for North America.
Had its 30th anniversary this year.
Oh my god.
Yep.
I'm old.
Yep. Time keeps on slipping.
Yep. Thanks. Yeah, 30 years on, and I didn't know that this game expands to basically twice the size halfway through. Which is just crazy, and I wish more games would do that kind of thing, where it's just like, you think it's about to be over,
no.
And then they're like, oh yeah, you have to go through this whole... I mean, there are definitely certain games that do...
The end of the world has to happen.
Yeah, like, it's super cool. Like, everything changes.
Did you notice that there's that scene, like it shows the planet and it's like on that day the world changed forever, and then like their next game was Chrono Trigger and it shows the planet and says, but the future refused to change. It's like, well, what is it? Is it changing or is it not?
Or is it... Man, Chrono Trigger is a whole other
I just thought that was an interesting contrast.
It is true. Yeah, there are very few games that surprise me in that way. The most recent example I can probably think of that had a similar effect on me was Elden Ring. Because you don't get shown the map at the
No,
beginning.
no, and I
You
love that. That's one of
I
my favorite things about
oh
that
I
game.
love just that stuff's amazing. You know,
You
it's like
can't even scroll the map that
no,
far until you get something that unlocks that part of the
yeah.
map, and then you can scroll, and you're like, "Oh, this game's like 3 times bigger than I thought it was."
Yeah, like it's not like an Ubisoft game where the whole map is available and it's just fog of war over
Yeah,
you. Because that's like the
yeah,
first thing I check on open world games is like,
right.
let's see how big this map is. Oh yeah, it's pretty big. It's pretty big. But you can't do that in Elden Ring.
Yeah, and when I first played Elden Ring, I was like, "Is that it? There's got to be more than that, right?
Yeah, I
There's
mean,
no
I can
way."
see shit in the distance. Like, what's all that
Yeah,
over there?
like there's no way that it took them this long to make that. There's got to be some more, right? There's got to be something they're not showing me,
Yeah,
right? I hope.
actually, there.
And then I did, and it was like, "Oh shit, there is a
Actually,
lot more."
I don't think that was the last game that did that for me. Tears of the Kingdom.
Oh yeah,
When I
yeah,
found out there was a whole underbelly,
yeah.
I was like, "What the?"
Yeah, that was my reaction because I don't know if they showed it in any of the pre-release material.
No, they
but
definitely
I
didn't.
had never seen it, and I was like, oh look, man, this is a big hole. I wonder what's down.
Yeah,
Oh fuck!
that's exactly what happened
No
to me.
way!
Yeah,
No
jump down that pit and you're like,
fucking way!
oh, this is deep. And you're falling and you're falling. Oh, this is real deep. Oh, this is real fucking deep. And then it opens up into that gigantic expanse and you're just like, holy
Is there a whole
shit.
underworld here?
Yeah. And then
Is
finding
there a
out like,
second Hyrule underneath this?
yeah, and you find out that the map is mimicked. It's
Yeah.
mirrored
Yeah.
to what the surface. Oh my god, what a game. But anyway,
Yeah, that was an
we're going to do a
incredible
Zelda
bait and
TierMaker.
switch, because they made you think that it was going to be like basically a second Sky World, and the Sky World is barely there in a lot of places.
Yeah.
It's the underworld. That's
It's the
thing.
underworld is huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got to do a Zelda TierMaker in the future for sure.
Oh god.
But yeah, that's kind of the feeling that this game gave me when I got to that point in the game. I'm like, holy shit, this game is huge.
Yep.
It just keeps going.
Yep.
And I mean, the fact that it has how many characters?
12.
12? Are you sure?
Well,
I think it's more than that.
12 standard.
Yeah.
And-
What is it with the optional ones?
Well, there's 2 more optional ones, so that'd be 14.
So there's 14?
Yeah.
It feels like there's more than that.
Well, you briefly get General Leo, you briefly get Bannon, you briefly get a bunch of Moogles, so it feels like there's more than there actually is.
Yeah, that's true.
In terms of like playable characters, there's a bunch more, but in terms of like actual long-term party members, there's the 14.
Now, with me not having played 3 or 5, I think that this is the first game that exited out of strictly fantasy, and we
Yes.
started to get like machines and
Well, I
steampunk
mean,
and like
well,
that
hold
kind
on
of
a
stuff.
second. Are you forgetting the Giant of Babel in Final Fantasy IV, the literal giant robot?
Well,
Or the big whale, the spaceship that takes you to the fucking moon?
oh yeah, that's true.
I
But
mean,
I wouldn't consider that a part of the overall world,
it's
though.
ancient Lunarian technology that you
Yeah.
unearth from an advanced society that came from the moon. So it's a little bit different. But yes,
Super
Final
cool,
Fantasy.
though.
Yes, Final Fantasy VI has a more technological focus to it than previous games did.
Yeah, you got Magitech in there, Magicite, and all that kind of stuff.
And that would continue into Final Fantasy VII.
And I think this was the first game with Moogles
No, Moogles appeared in Final Fantasy III.
in 3.
Yes.
So they skipped 4, 4, and 5 and came back in 6. That's so weird.
Well, I'm trying to remember. I think there might have been like a Moogle. Like I think there's a reference to Moogles in 5. Like I think there's like a piece of armor or something that's like the Moogle suit or something.
Yeah, I mean, in future games, Moogles aren't in most of them, but they are referenced in a lot
Yeah.
of them. So
Yeah,
that's
it's one of those things where they
put it in when it
they
makes
kinda-
sense.
They show up sporadically, but yeah, they
Yeah.
are a recurring thing. But they did first show up in 3.
Yeah. So Sid was in? Did I say 3?
He's in 2.
He's in 2. So
Yeah,
was he in
there-
3, 4, or 5?
Well, yeah,
He
there's
was in
a-
4.
Yeah, there's
Is
a
he in
Sid
3?
in 5. There's a Sid in 6.
No, none in 3.
I'm trying to remember. I feel like there is, but it's been a while since I played that game.
Okay. Yeah, I can't say for certain what I would consider unique about Final Fantasy VI, besides the fact that it is an absolutely huge game and has way more characters. Also, all previously locked classes,
Mm-hmm.
none that you can change.
No.
Um, I think did this game have a death? A major death? I can't remember.
None, not among the playable characters, but General
No.
Leo dies. Sid
Right. Oh,
can,
that sucks too, because Leo was dope.
yeah, Sid can die depending on your actions.
Oh, and Shadow can die too.
Shadow can die. Yes, that's true. If you are careless,
Like me.
like you.
I wouldn't say it's careless.
No, it is. It is hard to find. I didn't find it the first time I played either.
The game's just not good at telling you to be like, just so you know,
Yeah,
Shadow will die if you don't do this.
yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those things that I mean, I don't know who would have thought to do that. You know, I think the game does warn you. No, does it warn you?
No, it doesn't.
No.
But it
Yeah, it
does
does
give
warn
you,
you.
it does give you the option to step away from jumping off the floating continent.
It does. And
Which
there-
is
and-
probably the one clue, because why the fuck would you ever want to do that? Well,
Yeah.
maybe there's something you're missing.
Yeah. Which there is. I think you
there
have to
is.
wait until like 5 seconds.
Yep.
And then EP appears.
You walk back to that spot, it gives you the options, and then you keep scrolling, and there's one that says wait for Shadow, and then you wait until the last 5 seconds, and then he shows up and the scene automatically completes. And then you still
Crazy.
gotta find him in the world of Ruin again anyway.
Yeah. And he's not really. I wouldn't consider him an amazing character as far as like battle system goes. He's okay.
He can do some. Well,
The Shuriken, he's the Shuriken guy, right?
yeah,
Yeah, the Shurikens are really
Throw
good.
Is incredibly powerful in the early.
But you have to
game.
have items in order to do that.
Yeah, but you can throw almost any weapon in the game.
But the Shurikens are like.
The shurikens are the one that are meant to be thrown, but there's the scrolls that let him do like elemental attacks against all enemies at a time when most of your characters are not going to have magic spells. He is definitely more powerful in the early game, where throw is super overpowered. Later on in the game, when you can get spells that'll let you hit multiple times, or even accessories that'll let you hit multiple times, he doesn't become he's everybody else can kind of catch up to him in terms of the amount of damage that he can deal, but he can still do a shit ton of damage.
Yeah.
He's also got Interceptor, who shows up occasionally and will protect him from attacks.
Good old doggy.
He's one of only 2 characters that can equip the Memento Ring, which will protect him from instant kill attacks, which is always a helpful thing to have. I mean, he does generally have very good stats, but what makes him special becomes outclassed by the just absurdly powerful magic you can get in the second half of that game. And this is why I say that the game is kind of janky, because it's not very well balanced. It's an incredibly easy game because it's so,
I definitely
it's
found that.
so
as well.
easy to break and make yourself like just godly powerful.
Yeah, I definitely didn't have to grind at any point, which I don't mind because
Yeah.
I hate grinding. I think it's really
Yeah.
annoying when you get stuck at a boss and you're like,
Grinding is something
Great.
you only really need to do if you want to get all of Gao's rages, which are you have to fight enemies on the Veldt in order to get those, because he has to learn the enemy by fighting them.
right.
That takes
Yeah.
a while.
Yeah.
Or if you want to teach like everybody every spell in the game, because you have to equip the espers on them
Yeah.
for them to learn the
But to
spells.
get through the game, you don't need to grind.
To get
at
through
all.
the game, no, you don't need to do that.
It's just
But
not
I have
fun.
absolutely maxed out the clock in that game. It stops ticking once it reached 99 hours and 59 minutes. At least in the Super Nintendo version.
That's funny.
It doesn't go any higher than that.
It's like, nope, you've played this for longer than we intended.
Yeah.
This game was super expensive. I don't know if you knew that, but it cost 80 million US to make that game.
No, it couldn't possibly have cost that much.
Oh no, sorry, that was a different game, which we'll get to later. Never
Yeah, because I was going to say Shenmue was the most expensive game in the world at the time.
mind. Ugh, yeah, which is sad.
Well, Shenmue 1 and 2. Shenmue 1 and 2 were developed in tandem, and they cost $40 million US to make, which is an insane number.
It's crazy.
Back then.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, Final Fantasy VI, fantastic game. I do wish there was a version of it that had all of the content and was good. The Game Boy Advance
Yeah.
version has the most content, but the The color palette in that game's all fucked up. I think probably to compensate for the lack of a backlight on the GBA, despite the fact that it was literally the last GBA game released in Japan after they had 2 versions with a lit screen. I don't know why. I don't know what the logic behind doing that was, but there's like a patch you can get for the ROM to give it the old color palette, but it's like super desaturated on the GBA. But if you do that, it's the best version to play because it has all of the content and the best visuals.
Yeah, I don't know if the Pixel Remaster has all the content.
None of the Pixel Remasters have any of the added GBA version content
that
from any of
sucks.
the games. That's the whole reason I don't own any of them. Because what am I going to pay full price for these games that I already own at least one copy of for less content? Fuck no.
Yeah, I wonder why they did that. Unless maybe it was a deal with Nintendo.
No, it wasn't a deal with
content.
Nintendo because that extra content is in releases for other systems. They're in the PSP versions.
Yeah, then I definitely don't understand their decision there. That's weird.
Makes no sense.
All right, well, here's the ultimate question. Do you think it's better than 4?
Yes. It's my favorite game of all time.
Oh, yeah, that's great.
And from an objective standpoint, yes, I do.
Okay. Well, they're getting switched. So there you have it.
It doesn't diminish 4, it just...
No. They're both god-tier games, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Moving on to Final Fantasy VII, which came out in Japan in January of 97. And in North America, September of 97 for the PlayStation. This was the first 3D Final Fantasy, and obviously the most popular Final Fantasy game in the series.
This is one of the games that made the PlayStation, and I find it endlessly hilarious that Cloud wasn't in PlayStation All-Stars Battle, whatever the fuck.
Battle Royale,
but was in Smash Brothers, despite the fact that Final Fantasy VII had not appeared on a Nintendo system in Smash Brothers for Wii U.
If I remember correctly, at the time that game came out, Sony and Square had a little bit of a not a great relationship at the time, if I remember correctly.
Really?
Because that was during the PlayStation 3 era, and they...
you mean when Smash for Wii U came out, not when Final Fantasy VII came out?
No. When PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale came out.
Okay, yeah. Sorry, that makes sense.
Yeah, I don't think they had a great relationship at the time, because that was the generation where Square really didn't do anything with PlayStation. Whereas with the PlayStation 2, they were like, oh yeah, here's an exclusive, and here's an exclusive, and here's an exclusive. And then the PS3 came and they were like, nah, I'm good.
I wonder if that was a hardware thing.
Could be with the cell processor. Maybe they hated that shit.
Because, I mean, that wouldn't be the only case of a developer having trouble getting something out the door for that system.
Yeah, it took them a long time to get 13 out, which we'll talk about later.
It took them a long time. It took Sony, or anybody, a long time to get anything out for the PS3, period.
Yeah.
Yeah, you alluded to it. I can't even remember if it was... Because we've recorded 3 podcasts in, like, 5 days.
Yeah.
But you alluded to the first year of the PS3 being rough, and man, was it ever.
Very, very rough.
Yeah.
But yeah, Final Fantasy VII was amazing. It featured fully rendered backgrounds. I mean, they were static, but they were very, very visually impressive. This was the game that I was alluding to that cost $80 million US to create, which is a lot of money back then. That's a frick ton of money. It's even a lot of money now, honestly, for a game budget.
I mean, it depends if you adjust it for inflation or not.
Yeah, I wonder how much that is today.
Because 80 million today is not 80 million in 97.
No, it's a lot more.
It's a very different number. That's
80 million.
Probably 160 million today.
Let's see. 80 million. What year did it come out? 97? 80 million USD in 1997. Yeah, 156 million.
Yeah.
Which is basically your average AAA budget.
Yeah.
Today. So, that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. And it paid off, obviously.
Yeah. Well, yeah, this is kind of the game that I feel helped bring out RPGs as a mainstream thing in North America. Because they were successful in North America, but they weren't popular in the way that first-person shooters or stuff like that was. I feel like this is the game that kind of was the coming out for RPGs. Like, all right, here's what they can offer. And then the mainstream started to understand. Because, like, you and I knew. But
Yeah.
this is where everybody found out, I think.
Well, this was also when the game went from fantasy to
Science
su-
fiction and
sci-fi
fantasy.
magic. Yeah, it did a huge switch. Was a little bit more realistic, and it had swearing
Yes.
for the first time. It was much
Yes.
more of a mature
Swearing
audience.
that they even did the symbol censoring for.
Yeah,
Like Barrett canonically says "fuck" in that game.
yeah,
100%.
yeah.
But they
What
they
the?
don't.
Yeah.
But they got like the comic book swearing.
Yep. Yeah. They shrunk the party size to 3,
Probably
likely
a
because of
rendering
limitations
issue. Yeah.
of the hardware. But that didn't really affect anything because the game was still absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
Um,
And not even the first time they did a 3-member party before Chrono Trigger did that. It was fine.
oh yeah, for sure, absolutely. I will say I like Chrono Trigger's battle system better than Final Fantasy VII's though.
Well, yeah.
But they're both fantastic.
They're both fantastic. You don't have like double techs and triple techs in Final Fantasy VII. That
No.
would have been a neat thing.
That
I
would have
guess you
been
do
sick.
have limit breaks.
They do have amazing limit breaks. Yeah, that is absolutely true. Some of the best music in any game of all time.
The music is fantastic.
Just amazing. Just masterclass of music. Great storytelling, even if at some points it's a little convoluted.
Yeah.
Back when so here's my story. I had an N64. When I remember getting the VHS tape from, I think it was a Nintendo Power or something,
Probably, 'cause
that
they
talked
send out a
about
few.
it showed like Super Mario 64 and like how this was going to revolutionize.
Was that the one
gaming.
where they had a guy from Sega and a guy from Sony kidnap a guy from Nintendo, and that was the
Oh,
framing
God.
device for
I
showing
don't
off
remember
all
that.
that?
No,
Oh,
no, I don't think
dig
so.
that one up on YouTube. That one's a
I
treat.
will. Yeah, no. This one was just like a Super Nintendo 60 or Super. Can't speak. Super Mario 64 like highlight reel of like
Oh,
why this was
okay,
going to
yeah.
revolutionize this. I can't remember where I got it. I'd love to know more about that.
It was
that
probably Nintendo Power because I got a
feel
few
like it
tapes.
was
I
Nintendo
got
Power.
I think it was a Banjo Kazooie
tape. It was a
promotional
VHS,
VHS.
tape. Would they
Yeah.
really have included a VHS tape with Nintendo Power? Those things are huge.
Yeah,
No?
but I think they came separately from the magazine. It was like, here's a tape courtesy of Nintendo Power.
Oh,
Like
like
as a
if you had a
bonus.
subscription. Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah. Yeah, because I was picturing like a magazine with like a
With like it shrink wrapped in it. Yeah. Yeah,
the
no,
store.
that was a thing. That was a thing that like official PlayStation and official Xbox magazine did with demo discs.
Demo.
but-
Yeah, that made sense though. It was a little.
yeah, because you
freaking
could just
little-
fit it right in there.
Yeah, but a tape was fucking huge.
God, it was great when you got one of those magazines and it had a demo disc in it.
Oh man,
you were in for hours of fun,
Yeah, those are the best times. I wish I had kept all those demo discs.
dude. Demo disc tier list.
Yeah, that'd be fun. I don't know if they would be on here, but we can check.
Oh, we'd have to make ourselves a little database.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think there's really a whole lot of bad I can say about the game. Obviously, it had one of the most significant deaths in gaming history.
Yeah.
One that I never finished my story. So yeah, I was an N64 guy when the N64 came out.
Mm-hmm.
I sold my N64 and the collection in order to get a PlayStation just for this game.
I remember considering buying that from you, but you were so. I offered to buy a few of your games, but you were like, "No, I'm selling it all as a set
A set because I
to
wanted
maximize the amount
Yeah.
of money you get from it."
I needed to get as much as I could so that we could buy a PlayStation.
Yeah.
That was the whole idea behind it. My parents
Yeah.
were like, "No, you're not getting a second system." I'm like, "Okay, well let's sell the 64 and everything with it and get the PlayStation," which I later would regret because as much as I loved Final Fantasy VII, the rest of the PlayStation and catalog really just never did it for me.
That's a shame because the PlayStation catalog is pretty spectacular.
It is really great.
So I had both, but the only reason I was able to get both is because my sister Sarah and I agreed to co-own the PlayStation, and it did spend most of its time in my room. But we had a, so you might even remember this. We had like a little shelf on wheels, right, that you could roll around, and the PlayStation and a monitor was set up on that, so it could be wheeled
between the two
around
bedrooms.
between the two bedrooms. Yeah.
Yeah, I do remember that.
Yeah. Even though it did spend most of its time in my room because
Yeah.
I spent most of the time playing it. But it did occasionally go back and forth.
Yep. I'm trying to think of anything bad I can say about Final Fantasy VII except for the what I've already mentioned, which is the slightly convoluted story that I don't actually understand.
Yeah, Cloud just totally forgot that Zack existed, even though that was his whole reason for coming to Midgar, is to avenge Zack. It's like, oh, I got here, and then immediately forgot why I got here.
Yeah.
Because of
Reasons.
the life stream? Genova cells? Something?
Reasons? Yeah.
Yeah.
Very convoluted. I think they screwed up that part. I don't know whether that was because they rushed it a little bit out the door and they were like, just do this.
I wonder if they had too many ideas that they were trying to fit.
Yeah, it
in
definitely
one place.
strikes me as like something that was rushed and not fine tuned.
Yeah.
But it still all comes together in the end, and you're like, oh, that was amazing. Yeah, I mean, how can you not put this as God tier? I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know how you can't.
it's a tricky thing because this is like, oh, of course they're going to say it's God tier. It's Final Fantasy VII. Everybody loves it. Well, yeah, everybody loves it for a reason, though.
Yeah, there's reasons for that. It's not it's not like there's anything inherently wrong with it, and there's so much good going for it, and like it's just fantastic. Great set of characters, great combat system. What do they call the magic system?
The materia system.
The materia system is fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with it. It's really good. Like I'm having trouble nitpicking. About it. So
materia system offers a lot of tactical decision making, like because you can't just teach a character every spell in this game, like you could in Final Fantasy VI, which is half the reason that game is so fucking easy.
No.
Here you don't even teach spells to characters permanently. You upgrade the materia itself and give it to a character by equipping it in one of their materia slots on the weapons and equipment that they're carrying.
Yeah.
And different pieces of equipment have different numbers of materia slots, and whether or not those slots are linked or individual. It might behoove you to use a weaker piece of equipment if it gives you better materia slots.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but when you switched out a weapon, its model in the game changed too, didn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, which is mind-blowing at the time.
I mean, that did exist in the other games, but they were all two-dimensional.
You hardly even noticed.
It was just it's just a one-frame sword graphic.
A different color sword or stuff like that. But this was like the whole model changed.
Entirely different character model or object models,
weapon model,
I should say.
Yeah, super cool
and fairly detailed in some cases. Like the nail bat actually has a nail sticking through it.
Yeah,
no materia slots though. Materia slots are for pussies. Have you ever seen
a bat with a nail in it?
Have you ever seen that picture?
Yeah,
it's like a promotional poster for the nail bat, and then the tagline: "Materia slots are for pussies."
I love it.
Love that picture. I think that's like a something awful thing or something like that. That's been around for a while.
I might be wrong on this because I think Final Fantasy VI may have had this, but this had optional bosses. I don't think.
Yes,
I think 6 did, but nothing before it did.
Well, like I said,
at least not in the expansive set that this game did and 6 did.
No,
nothing.
There
was mega weapons that you had to defeat. In
nothing.
7.
Nothing on the scale of the weapons. Like I said, Final Fantasy V had like the Go-Go as a secret boss that you got the mimic ability from, and obviously in later releases, stuff is retroactively added. There's expanded content, like I said, in the GBA versions that adds these challenge dungeons with a whole bunch of extra bosses and stuff.
And 7 had additional characters too.
Yeah, but nothing quite like in 7. And in fact, some of that stuff was added for the North American release. Ruby and Emerald Weapon do not exist in the original Japanese release.
So we got special treatment this time.
Yep.
About time.
And then in Japan, they had Final Fantasy VII International Edition, which was like a special edition release that was all of the content and the bug fixes from the North American release re-released in Japan.
There you go.
Yep. In fact, if you watch the cinematic of the weapons emerging from the planet, the shots of Ruby and Emerald were added for the North American version. They're not present in the original Japanese. Yep.
That's super cool.
Yep.
All right. As far as placement on the tier, do we think it's better than 4?
Overall, I'd say yes. There are aspects of 4 that I like more, but just the dramatic, because 4's greatest strength is absolutely its storytelling.
Yeah.
and it's second to almost none in that regard. And part of that is the nostalgia for me, but like 4 has really strong storytelling. But its gameplay is fairly straightforward compared to all of the later games, and even compared to 3. So I would definitely put it ahead of 4 overall. Ahead of 6, I don't know, man. I like 6 a lot. That's where my bias is coming in.
I'm happy with 7 being in the
There's
middle.
definitely more to do in 7. 7 also has a shit ton of mini games in it that are just there for the experience.
We didn't even talk about the saucer.
Oh, I'm not even talking about the saucer. I'm just talking about like there's a slap fight mini game between Tifa and fucking who's that bitch?
Who's that bitch?
Scarlet, is it? She's one of like the higher ups at Shinra. They have a slap fight
Who's
at
that
one point.
bitch?
Well, she was kind of a bitch, man.
That's funny. That'll go over well with our audience.
I mean, if they've played the game, they know what. Look, are you going to say anything complimentary about those Shinra higher ups? They're douchebags, man.
They're all, earth killing pieces of shit. Let's be real.
Not just earth killing. They dropped a plate on Sector 7.
Yeah, that's true. Genocidal maniacs.
They're fucked up, man.
Yeah,
fuck those guys. And there's a one-off mini game in there where you have to time slaps with Tifa, and when that's over and she rejoins the party, she's like, "I'm fine, but my cheek kind of hurts." The game's also really funny at times.
It does. It has a lot of humor in it. That's true. Yeah. Great game.
Great game.
All right, let's move on to 8.
Okay, so this is another place where I asked, how we feel versus how we objectively thinks it ranks, because
a mixture here.
It's a mix here.
So it was released in Japan in February of '99, and September in '99 for North America.
Still pretty quick turnaround.
Yeah, super quick turn, especially for 3D games. Holy crap!
Yeah.
That's not, man. Why can't games come out that quickly now?
Well, I mean,
we know why.
Look at what Final Fantasy VIII looks like.
Yeah.
Do you think the market would accept games that look like that?
No, that's definitely true. I mean, look at Final Fantasy 16.
You'd have a hard time selling the PS5 Pro if that's what your games look like.
They're gonna have a hard time selling that anyway. Moving on. Yeah, Final Fantasy VIII is definitely a strange one.
Yeah.
This one I remember playing. So my story continues from earlier, where I sold the 64 and I got the PlayStation, and then I sold the PlayStation to get the 64 back.
Jesus Christ, man.
Yeah, and then I think somewhere.
You could have just come to my house to play some of these games.
Yeah, I don't remember what the hell was going on at that time, man. I was young and stupid, and my parents were amazing. So, I think at some point, if I remember correctly, the PlayStation 2 came out, and they didn't want to buy me that because it was too expensive. So they bought the PlayStation again. So then I had the PlayStation 1 and the 64 at the same time. And then I caught up on PlayStation 1 stuff before I got
That's
the
what
PS2.
happened to me with the PS2, is I didn't get the
Pretty
PS2 until like the PS3 was about to come out. So I had a huge backlog of PS2 to go through.
I'm pretty sure that's how it ended up working.
The PS2 was crazy expensive for a long time because
Yeah.
retailers knew they could get away with charging full price for it.
Yeah.
Even 5 years after its release.
I definitely got the PlayStation 2 within a year, I want to say. I don't know how that happened. I don't know. Maybe my dad got a promotion back then or something. I have no idea. I definitely remember getting it because I played like Smuggler's Run and some stuff, some of the launch games like that. But yeah, I remember getting the PlayStation again and being like, oh, they made 2 more Final Fantasies after 7. Holy shit! Didn't know that. This was before the internet times. You had to get magazines in order to know this crap.
Yep.
I didn't. I subscribed to Nintendo Power back then, but I don't think
obviously
I had.
You weren't going to get Final Fantasy stuff in there at that point.
No, I think occasionally I would pick up a PlayStation magazine at the store, like just to be like, oh look, that one comes with a demo disc.
Reliable birthday present from Shun, our mutual Dreamcast friend.
Who?
Shun.
Oh yeah.
He used to his go-to was gaming magazines.
That's true.
As a birthday gift. It was
That's
it was
true.
awesome.
I do remember that. Yeah.
Because it was
Yeah.
like, oh, cool, I get a bunch of magazines that I don't have.
I think I would always get one in my stocking for Christmas too.
Yeah.
It was one of those things where you're not subscribed to it, but you got a bunch of them.
Yeah, and the thing is, because my birthday is in December,
Oh yeah.
I was always get the December issues, which were always had the big holiday buyers section.
Yeah,
So
so you'd be informed.
you get a great big overview of all the games that come out in the last year.
Yep, that's true.
Good time to be a consumer.
Yep.
We haven't even talked about Final Fantasy VIII yet.
No, yeah, I'm trying to get back to it. So like, Final Fantasy VIII's weird. There's some weird stuff. We talked about how Final Fantasy VII has a little bit of a convoluted story. This one is weird.
Yeah, this one's really weird.
This one's really weird. Like, I don't even remember the second half of the game because it gets to the point where my brain just shuts off because I just don't get it.
They were on some shit back then. I don't know what.
Yeah,
they
there
were
was something
doing,
going on at this time. Yeah, I remember the first half of that game very clearly, getting to the point where all of a sudden I'm playing a bunch of other characters and I'm like, what the hell happened?
And they're better characters.
Yeah,
They're way more entertaining.
I couldn't tell you, even just sitting here thinking about that game, what happens after that.
Let me summarize. Oh my god, we actually all knew each other. We all were in the same orphanage as kids. And also, there's a witch who's trying to compress time into a single moment to stuff.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I know the witch. I remember her. She was in the parade at the.
No, there's another witch.
Oh, there's two. There's.
That's a different witch.
So who are these other characters then? Are they them as younger?
No, those are so there was a war about 20 years before the present time in the game, and Laguna, Kyros, and fucking what's the other guy's name? The big guy. It'll come to me. They were soldiers in the Galbadian military, and they.
It sounds interesting.
There's a story connection. The fucking Jesus Christ. There's a lot to explain.
It's that bad. It's that convoluted.
Yeah.
I don't even know if I want to know anymore.
It's time shenanigans, okay?
I'm all for time shenanigans, but this game didn't do a good job of explaining all of that.
Yeah, look. The story's not the strong point of this game.
No, it's definitely not.
This is one of my problems with the game.
And unfortunately, the combat's not that strong either.
Oh man. So
the whole system. What is the system called?
The junction system.
The junction system. Yeah, it's not great.
So
it's weird.
I will give Square credit for having some very bold and interesting ideas for the junction system.
Yeah.
I will give them almost no credit for successfully implementing it. The junction system is a system in which you can attach a magical spell to a particular stat or ability, like your standard attack command, and it will impart certain qualities. So you can junction your fire magic to get fire elemental attacks, and it will also boost the damage you do, but you could also junction it to your defense, which will increase your defense and cause
Keep talking.
to... Sure, you've got cat issues here, I see. You can junction it to your defense, and it will not only increase your defense, but it will give you greater defense, specifically against fire elemental magic. It was an interesting idea. Here's the problem. The way that magic works in Final Fantasy VIII is you don't have MP. Instead, you have charges. And you use an ability called Draw to draw out charges of a spell from a targetable enemy. So you can draw like 5 charges of the fire spell, which means 5 casts of the fire spell. And you can have, I believe, up to 255 of these each, which means if you can cast something like Ultima 255 times in a row, it behooves you to not make the Ultima spell all that powerful, because then it means you can just steamroll through the game. So magic is not incredibly well balanced. It almost feels like it's more for there to use as a junctioning ability than as an actual spell. So it kind of makes the magic system feel not useless. Obviously, you still have a use for your healing magic and stuff, but it feels like it disincentivizes you from using it, because also the more charges you have banked, the more powerful the junctioning of that spell will be. Junctioning one charge of fire is not nearly as effective as junctioning 100 charges of fire. So you're encouraged to stockpile and to not cast the spells that are normally a thing that you would do in a fantasy game.
Exactly. Kind of breaks itself.
Then you've got the way that summons work, which are called Guardian Forces, which are also not controlled by MP or any real restrictions on your ability to use them. You can basically just keep summoning them over and over. They do have HP, they can take damage, and they can die, but they can also be healed and revived, and it's a lot of gimmicks that they're trying to roll into a battle system, and the gimmicks are, again, not a bad idea on paper, but they're kind of half-baked in execution. I have been playing Final Fantasy VIII within the last year. It's not as bad as I remember it being. I definitely appreciate it a lot more coming back to it a second time, but I still consider it to be the worst of the 3 PS1 games, by far.
Oh yeah, it's definitely the worst of the 3 for sure.
It's all over the place. Most of the characters are tremendously unlikable. Squall is a douche. He's just an unlikable, poor little me.
He was emo before emo was a thing.
Yeah. Renoa is an airhead and annoying. Selfie is that chick who wants to hang out with you all the time, but you're like, Jesus, woman, I've got other stuff to do, Oh, come to club later on. I'm making the school's website. I make fun of that. I was the webmaster of my high school's website for a year. Yeah. So I guess I can't judge that too harshly. But it just... Zell is such a... Jesus Christ. He's probably the most likable character in the main cast, and he's still a wiener.
A wiener?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not a lot of winners among that cast.
There really isn't. And even from their visual design, I don't find them very...
It's like the Breakfast Club, but nobody realizes how to be a better person at the end. Well, I mean, I guess at the very end of the game, Squall learns how to smile and fucking chill the fuck out, but...
It's not enough to redeem him for a game of,
Yeah.
Oh, speaking of a game, it also features triple
triad, which I actually like a lot.
Yeah, it's not bad.
That was the high point of that game for me.
That's pretty sad that the minigame is better than the game.
Here's one of the best jokes I ever saw. Super Best Friends Play, now defunct YouTube channel, did a video where they were like, let's play Final Fantasy VIII. And it presents it as if it's going to be a full playthrough of Final Fantasy VIII. It's actually just two of the guys, Wooly and Liam, I believe, just going through and just doing the triple triad. It's like they've done a full playthrough, but they only ever show the triple triad. It's one of the best fucking jokes I've ever seen, because you think, oh, full playthrough? Nope, it's just a gag video about them only showing triple triad.
Yeah, it was pretty good.
It's better than Tetramaster in Final Fantasy IX. I never liked Tetramaster as much.
No, I wasn't a fan either. Yeah. I think this was the first game that it really introduced the idea of a side minigame that you could play throughout the game. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like you look at Gwent in The Witcher 3.
Yeah, very similar to that.
Basically the same
idea.
thing. Yeah. You stop and play Magic the Gathering for a bit.
Yeah. Now, as average as the game seems to be in our eyes, it did really well for them.
Oh, yeah, it did tremendously well.
It's like $151 million in sales in its first day in Japan.
It's a Final Fantasy game. It's going to do really well regardless.
Yeah. It was the fastest selling Final Fantasy title until 13, which is scary.
That is scary, because 13 is also not good.
We'll talk more about that for sure. Yeah. However, I will say the Final Fantasy 13 was a multi-platform release, so it had that advantage.
Yeah.
I will say the one thing that was really cool about Final Fantasy VIII was the summons were really cool.
Oh yeah,
Very,
but
very cool.
they were a whole mechanic in the game instead of just a different
Yeah,
type of magic attack.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
They were the a big part of the story. So it
I
was really
didn't
cool.
even touch on how you don't buy new weapons in this game. You have to upgrade them, and you have to find fucking
Yeah,
parts to do the.
yeah.
It's
Still,
way too many new ideas that they hadn't figured out the way to Well, I mean, the weapon upgrading isn't terrible. It's just not great.
none of it I think is broken. It's just not.
It's a little bit broken.
It's just not good. It's just too complicated for a lot of it. Yeah.
I would legitimately love for them to do a Final Fantasy VIII remake, like to the degree that they've done the Final Fantasy VII remake, and take another crack at that. And see
Oh
if they
yeah,
can
yeah,
figure
no,
out a better
100%.
way. Because
The
I think they could.
ideas are there.
I think they could actually turn that around and make it into a really interesting game from
100%.
like a mechanical standpoint.
Yeah, well, I agree.
My problem with Final Fantasy VIII was never the ideas; it was always the execution.
The execution's the problem. I completely agree. From top to bottom, the execution's just subpar.
Yeah.
You know, everything from the design to the character models to even the music's kind of just not great. I mean, it's
the
good.
music. The music is good. I don't like that you have to get a game over to hear the Final Fantasy theme. Yeah, you only get that on the game over screen, which is depressing.
Very depressing.
I will say I do appreciate that they got the high detail battle models of the characters as just the regular models.
regular
out in the
models.
field. That
That's
was
true.
cool.
Yep.
Massive improvement over the fucking cardboard box Lego people of Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah, that's true.
They really upped the ante in terms of their FMVs. They look fucking fantastic.
They were
even
gorgeous
today.
at the time. Yeah,
Like as good as Final Fantasy VII's FMVs looked, Final Fantasy VIII fucking kicked
10
its
times
ass
better.
in that regard. Like
Yeah.
there is no denying the visual quality of that game is top notch for the day. But it's not about how it looks, man. It's about how it plays, and it don't play as good as 7 or most of the games in the series.
No. As far as where to put it on the rank, and I'm trying not to be, because it's not a bad game.
It's not
just
a bad game. It's just
a bad Final Fantasy game.
it in comparison to
Yeah.
its contemporaries, its peers, it's not as good.
I'm thinking either high low or low mid.
I would say mid.
Yeah.
I have a higher opinion of Final Fantasy 1 because of the time frame in which it was released. Like if it's this thing. If Final Fantasy
Oh no, I
had-
agree. Final Fantasy 1 is definitely better.
Yeah, by the standards of the day, Final Fantasy 1 is a better game
100%.
than Final Fantasy 8 was when 8 came out.
So we either place it below Final Fantasy 1 or we put it in the low column.
I say we put it below Final Fantasy 1, but still
Below
mid.
Final Fantasy 1. Okay.
It's perfectly playable. It's perfectly serviceable.
That's true.
But I'd rather be playing 7 or 9.
I'd rather play anything else other than 8, personally. Well, maybe not all of them on this list. We'll get to those ones.
We'll talk about 13.
All right. Moving on to 9.
9's great.
So I haven't beat 9.
Neither have I. It's long as fuck.
It's long.
It's super long.
Yeah. But I do like the battle system. I do like the characters.
Characters are great.
Yeah, Vivi's amazing.
Yeah.
Is it Squire? I think is his name.
Which
The dude in the metallic, the knight guy. I thought it was Squire.
Jesus
I should
Christ.
have it in here somewhere.
It'll come to me, but it'll come to me too late. I haven't played that game in so long. But yeah, I know the guy you're talking about, the knight. He was actually kind of like I found the least interesting character in the game, but he was still interesting.
Steiner.
Steiner, there you go.
Yeah, I knew it started with an S. I was couldn't.
Actually,
couldn't
no.
remember
I guess Amarant would be the least interesting character in the game because I never used him for anything.
that. Coral. Yeah.
Yeah.
This game came out in 2000, July 2000 for Japan, and November 2000 for North America.
I remember it was a really, really big deal when it came out, which it should be. It was great. It was a really, really good game, and I should go back and I should play more of it.
I've attempted to play through it maybe 5 or 6 times, and it doesn't hold my interest the way that other Final Fantasy games do. I think it's because it's not as like grand of an epic. It does feel a little bit more like focused.
I think they were. Well, I don't think. I know they were trying to harken back to a bit more old school stuff in that, which I think maybe came across with some more simplified stuff, because it doesn't have the materia system of 7. It doesn't have the junction system of 8 for all the flaws that had. It doesn't really do anything.
It doesn't do anything new.
It doesn't do anything new or unique.
It's just a 3D classic Final Fantasy.
Yeah, it basically does stuff that other games have done really well. It doesn't have like that, groundbreaking or revolutionary new gameplay gimmick. But it's a good game, man.
Yeah, no, it's definitely great. Great music. Some great characters.
Incredible
great visuals.
Music. Massive soundtrack, by the way. There's like 100 tracks on that soundtrack.
Yeah, it's really good. It sold over almost 6 million copies, which was huge back then.
Yeah.
I don't know whether it did anything new. I'm looking through some of the details, but I don't think it really did anything new. I think it was just sort of a refined ode to the classic Final Fantasies.
Yeah.
I think that's the best way of putting it.
Which is totally fine, because it was a good game.
Yeah.
I just I haven't really gone back and played it since it came out.
Moogles were in the game.
Mm-hmm.
They were like your how you save the game, and I think they did like mail.
Yep.
And stuff like that. It was like a postal service. Yeah, Mognet.
Yep. That has shown up in some other games as well.
Yes, it is. I don't have much to say on it because I never beat it.
Has some interesting thematic connections with Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles.
Yeah.
Including the Mognet thing and the miasma thing.
Yeah, I'm wondering if this one might be the first one we put into Not Enough Experience.
No.
I don't know where I would put it because I don't.
I'd put it in high. It's really good.
Really?
Yeah.
But you never beat it.
I never beat it. So what? I played the shit out of it. Just a long time ago, but the fact that I still hold such a high opinion of it. Also, people will come for our skulls if we put it any lower than high. Just putting that out there. Look, people who like 9 really like 9. Don't fuck with those people.
I feel like if it was as good as people say it is, for me, I would have beat it because I would have kept going.
Yeah, but also consider this was right on the eve of the PS2 release.
Yeah, but I mean, I've gone back and tried to play it still, and I still don't. Even
Have you had a clear gaming schedule with nothing else that you were playing to sidetrack you?
Oh yeah, for sure. This is one of those games I go back to when there's a drought.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, where I'm like, there's like a group of games where I'm like, man, I never beat that game. I need to go back and play it, and this falls into that category along with like The Witcher 3.
Dude, my former brother-in-law left his copies of his PlayStation Final Fantasy games with me for a bit while he was getting sorted out during a move. I should have fucking ripped those discs, man.
I have Final Fan. I have every Final Fantasy on almost every Final Fantasy on PlayStation at this point. So
yeah, I don't want to get the Steam.
I
don't want to get the Steam version because you have to be always online to play it, from what I understand. Even though it does have. Yeah, I know.
That's stupid.
It's on the fucking fine print.
Oh my god! It's a fucking offline classic PlayStation.
Yeah,
1
which
game.
is the only reason I don't have it on Steam. But
maybe the good old games version is good.
I don't know if it's even on GOG.
Ooh, I don't know, man. I would concede to the lowest on the high tier, or the highest on the mid tier. I think.
Well, considering you don't have the experience with it, I'd say lowest on the high. People will be upset with us for doing that. I'm a little
cares
upset.
what people think.
I'm a little upset with us for doing that. But I will say I haven't played it nearly as recently as I've played 3 and 5.
Okay.
Because, like I said, I haven't put. I mean, like other than popping in, to see a little bit of it, I haven't played it in earnest in, for over 20 years.
Okay, that's fair.
But I do like the game a lot.
All right. I'll concede. All right, moving on. Final Fantasy X
Now this
came
is one
out
of you.
in
2002.
July. What's that?
2002, right?
Nope. July 20. Oh, sorry. I can't speak. God, I hate that. July 2001 in Japan and December 2001 in North America.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
This is one of your favorites of all time.
PlayStation 2 game. Yeah. Wasn't a launch title, but it was definitely quick. Quick turnaround.
First Final Fantasy game to have voice acting in it, which was controversial at the time for some reason. Some people were not happy about that.
No,
but it
did sell
out
really
fine.
well.
Yeah.
You know what's weird though? Is that the budget was much smaller than Final Fantasy VII.
Well, that's reflected in the fact that it doesn't have as expansive a world. It's a much more linear game.
I mean, yeah, it doesn't have an open world per se, but you can revisit everything.
You can revisit
and
things.
you kind of want to for a multitude of reasons.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that would why the budget would be so much smaller. So the budget for Final Fantasy VII was 80 million. The budget for Final Fantasy X was only 32. Why? I'm very confused about why it was such a. The only thing I can think of is that the leap to 3D was such an expensive journey for them to figure it out, and that's why it cost so much money. That's a huge difference.
Yeah.
But
again, that's in like 2000s money, so that's
about 60 million.
Yeah, it's still
which is still like 100 million less.
Yeah.
You know, like that's a lot less.
I could see making a game that looks and feels like Final Fantasy X for 60 million current dollars. Like that seems like what it would cost.
All right, a little weird to me. I always thought the costs would go up as time went on.
I mean, consider that when Final Fantasy VII was being made, the Silicon Graphics computers that they were buying to do those
that's true.
were like 50 grand. And then by the time Final Fantasy X was a thing, you could get 3D Studio Max on Windows for about $1,000.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And suddenly the price disparity starts to come into focus a bit more, I think.
That's true.
Also, this is why SGI fucking died. Because they couldn't charge their outrageous prices because they weren't the only name in town anymore.
Final Fantasy X has sold over 8.5 million copies on PlayStation 2 and over 20 million copies since then on other platforms.
It is a very popular game. A lot of people love that game.
Yeah, as you alluded to earlier, this is... I mean, I can't not say that it's my favorite Final Fantasy game.
Yes, at one point I believe you called it your favorite game of all time.
It is definitely in my top 3.
Yeah.
Those games definitely shift.
Yeah.
From time, depending on the day.
It came out like 20 years ago. Obviously, stuff has come out since then. That's going to change your thoughts.
I don't think any game in the last 20 years, would be on above it. If anything was above it, it would be before Final Fantasy X.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're gonna have that discussion at some point, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's one of my favorite games of all time. The music is unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
The characters are really cool. For me, I know they're very polarizing, and there's the infamous laughing scene that is just awkward and stupid.
Yeah, but it's supposed to be awkward and stupid.
Yeah.
He's literally talking about just laugh through the pain.
So he doesn't even know half the stuff.
He's awkwardly laughing through the pain.
Yep.
That's why it sounds so weird, because it's supposed to be weird.
Yeah. The final boss music is just friggin' epic. It's friggin' hell. Some of the cinematics in this game are just gorgeous.
Oh, they're incredible.
They're so good that they put in a theater mode where you actually go to a theater in the game and watch the cinematics.
Yeah, the opening one where Sin trashes Xanarkand, that was
amazing.
Fucking sick.
Yeah, that song is the final boss theme.
Mm-hmm.
It's from Rammstein, I think. It's like a a heavy metal song. It's so good. Yeah, some of the translation stuff sucks. Unfortunately, some of the dialogue just kind of doesn't age well.
Yeah,
Even at the
well,
time, it was kind of awkward at times.
yeah, well, when you're doing localization, you have to make some decisions, and sometimes something doesn't translate perfectly, and you gotta either just go with your best option, which is sometimes coming up with something different. That's especially true when you're translating jokes, because if you've got any kind of puns or wordplay, for example, it's not going to work in a translation. You think Japanese wordplay is going to translate to English or vice versa?
No, they got to come
Never.
up with their own stuff for sure.
Yeah, localization is tough, and not everything comes through. Not everything comes out the other end the way that it was, in its original version.
Yeah.
That's just the reality of the situation.
No, that's true. But the actual story itself is phenomenal. It's definitely controversial, I think, for certain people that thought it was a little trite. There is a twist in the game for those of you who haven't played it. I think we're getting into the territory now where spoilers are a little bit less.
Dude, it's a
24-hour
gear.
20. Yeah, it's 24 years old. But
we can talk about the fact that Tidus is from a dream of a dead city.
He is. Well, yes, he's. Yeah, that's accurate.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's a bit of an oversimplification, but yeah.
He is an imaginary clone of a city that is there to facilitate them stopping sin.
Yeah.
Basically stopping the cycle of death.
Yeah.
I love the story. I think it's fantastic. There is some parts of it that I'm critical of, like. I think
there's one section that I'm quite critical of. You know about that, although.
Which one?
Blitzball.
Oh, I mean, it's not a section. I mean, it's if you don't want to play it, it's like 0.2% of the game. I mean, you have to play one game.
I hate Blitzball so much.
If you dedicate some time to it, it's actually really fun. What sucks about it is they gave you to introduce you to the game. They're like, hey. Here's a bunch of players that suck. Yeah. Have fun. That's
it's the championship game or fucking whatever it is.
Yeah, you can win it.
Yeah,
but it is very difficult, and it's all luck. Honestly, if you know what you're doing, it's still luck. Yeah. You rely on it. I think I've won one time.
I'll get you to beat that section for me.
I mean, I can finish it. I don't know whether I can win. That's just as a dice roll, practically.
I fucking hate Blitzball.
I love it once you get into it. Unlocking all the different abilities and leveling up your characters to where they don't suck. It's actually really fun. But like I couldn't. There's nothing. Like I said, there's a couple of underdeveloped things I think about the game that I'm not sure why they were underdeveloped. Like Lulu, the character, is not really ever explained. She's just kind of there.
Yeah.
She just has magic powers, 'cause reasons.
And a dress made entirely of belts.
And a dress of belts, which is badass, but
Nomura
why?
was going through some shit at that point. He had a belted zipper period that lasted for like a decade, where like he put belts and zippers on absolutely all of the character designs.
Yeah.
It was fucking like, I think Donald had zippers on his fucking beret in one of the Kingdom Hearts games at one point.
Yeah, he did.
Jesus Christ, it was bad. It was really bad. He's out of that phase now, but it was a bad time.
Yeah, I love all the rest of the characters. So Lulu's kind of just there. I that's the only part of the cast that I don't like is Lulu. I like her herself.
Yeah.
I just don't like that she's never really explained. She's just kind of there. She doesn't have a backstory.
I have a very similar thing to say about a character in Final Fantasy XII.
Oh, we'll definitely get into that. Yeah. That's for sure. But yeah, I love Orin is one of the most badass characters in the series. Mm-hmm. Waka,
he's a ghost that is
he's a dead dude who just wrecks people, man.
He exists through sheer force of will.
Yeah, he's amazing. I thought it.
He doesn't even use both hands on his sword. He's constantly got one just in his coat.
Yeah, he's just like whatever. He does use it when he attacks.
Yeah.
He breaks it out when he attacks, and then
but the rest of the time, and then he's got like that jug of sake that he carries around.
Yeah.
He's dope. He's a cool dude.
Cool dude, and an awesome name. I love the name Orin. That's just a cool name. obviously the story is based around summoning creatures, and Yuna herself going on a pilgrimage, and all of the intricacies of introducing someone who has no idea what this is all about, being Titus.
Yeah, almost as if they were designed as a stand-in for the player.
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
because
he is.
that's what he is.
That's exactly what he is. Yeah, just super. Waka is really cool as well. You get, you grow to love him.
Appropriately themed fish out of water story, considering how prominent water is in that game, and
Indeed.
the main character swims a lot.
And you can breathe underwater
Yes,
for unexplained reasons as well.
you
which I
just
don't
you just
like.
don't. You just have you just hold. Well, I think for Titus it's explained because he's a professional blitzball player, and they're so used to holding their breath underwater that they can do it for long periods of time. But in reality, it just extends to everybody.
Yeah, it's everyone.
Everybody could just do it because they wanted to have
and
underwater.
it's not a super long time. It's infinite.
Yeah, it's infinite. That's the story explanation, but mechanically,
I have to assume, yeah.
people just hold their breath or forever for no problem.
No, yeah. Stuff
Because
like that is like
they wanted to have underwater dungeons, which okay, cool, sure.
Yeah, I didn't like those. I'm not gonna lie. There was definitely like some puzzle elements to some of those caves. I remember some of the caves, underwater caves, were like confusing and not well designed.
I did think that it was kind of cool how they themed pretty much the entire game around water. I mean, Sin is basically formed, like it just materializes out of the water. In the opening of the game, in like that big bubble in the sky,
big
and then
water.
just raises out of the ocean.
Yep. Just wrecks that city.
Pretty much the entire game takes place on the coast of some island or other.
Mm-hmm.
There's water everywhere. You're never not seeing water in that.
Very
game.
tropical game. For
Yeah.
sure. Yeah.
And also another thing about that game, looks completely unique.
Yeah, it doesn't look like any other Final Fantasy
The design is unlike any other Final Fantasy game, and part of me wishes they would do that again, but part of me likes that it stands out as this very unique-looking game.
Yeah.
You will never mistake a screenshot of Final Fantasy 12 or Final Fantasy 10. Jesus Christ, you might mistake the way that I talk about it, but yes, you'll never mistake it for any other game, even for Final Fantasy 10 too. It is such a distinct visual flavor that. And flavor really is the best way to describe it. Like, that game is so colorful, it almost looks like you could taste it.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's an absolutely gorgeous game. The HD remaster is especially really good.
Yeah, it's a little bit mixed because the game was so specifically designed for the PS2 hardware that
there's some sharpness problems. And
trying to recreate those effects, like some of the lighting effects and the shading effects in the HD remaster, it doesn't come out quite looking the same. It looks a little bit flatter.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
It doesn't quite have that same degree of contrast that was in the PS2 game due to just the limitations of how lighting and stuff worked on the PS2. And it's not exclusive to Final Fantasy X. You see that in the GTA games. You see that in Metal Gear Solid 2 and 3. PS2 games have often a particular look about them because of how the rendering on that system works. And it's difficult to reproduce. Like, if you lean into that look, which a lot of games did, it can be hard to recreate it elsewhere because it's so specific to the PS2.
Yep. Yeah, the remaster also featured, I think, was it orchestrated soundtrack?
Yes, there is an arranged soundtrack that you can select.
Yeah, which is really good.
Yeah, you can also listen to the original one.
Yeah, you can switch between them. Yeah, that's very cool.
It's accessible in the menu. They both sound great.
Yeah, they both sound fantastic. Yeah.
I really love the battle theme in that game. It's one of my favorites in all the series.
The boss battle theme especially is amazing. That's really fantastic.
And that jazzy techno-ish Final Fantasy like theme rendition from when you're walking around Xanarkand at the beginning of the game.
Yeah.
I love that track.
Yeah, it's absolutely fantastic. Very cinematic. I liked how you have to go to all these temples and they all have this like cool puzzle you know, I don't want to call it puzzle room, but it's basically what it is. It's almost like an escape room. And the fact that those escape rooms have like a secret chest that you have to find in them. You don't have to, but it's an optional thing that you need to get the legendary weapons in the game. Very cool as well.
Isn't that what Tidus is holding on the cover? Is his ultimate sword, or the one that's the blue one with the kind of the hook at the end of the blade?
No, that's the starting weapon.
Is that the
That's
starting weapon?
That's the one that Orin gives you at the very beginning of the game. For sure. Let me check the.
I thought it. I thought. I mean, I know you do get a sword like that, but I thought it was just like a metal one that he gives you. It's been a while since I played it. It's been a few years.
No, I'm 99% sure that
Okay.
sword is the one that he gives you.
Man, even the cover of
you might be right. Hold on.
even
You
the
might-
cover of that game, Tidus is emerging from the water.
Yeah, there's a lot of water in that game.
Yeah.
Oh, the scene. Speaking of water, the scene where oh, what's that village called? Oh crap! I should know this. It's one of my favorite games of all time. We've just talked about so much Final Fantasy that my brain's starting to overload.
Yeah.
There's a water village where the fire temple is. That gets destroyed by Sin.
Oh, okay. I was like, is it Besaid where he
No.
meets Waka and stuff?
No.
We haven't even talked about how horrifically racist Waka is.
How what is?
Waka, how racist he is to the Albad.
Oh yeah, he's super racist.
To go back to refer to the Super Best Friends play, they did an actual full playthrough of Final Fantasy X. It's like 100 parts long. Somebody did a compilation of all the times they make fun of Waka for being racist, and it's nearly an hour-long video.
So the weapon in on the cover is not his legendary weapon.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, his legendary weapon looks sick though. You should look it up. It's called the Khalid Bulg.
Oh, okay.
It looks sick. Yeah, but I also think that you're right that the one on the cover is not the weapon that he gets from Orin either. So
yeah,
it's just a random weapon that's in the game.
it's probably one that they felt looked most appropriate because guess what? It's blue.
It looks like water.
It looks like a blade made out of water, so
Yeah.
it would make sense to to have it there.
It's funny. Yeah, no, the Khalid Bulg is a celestial weapon. Yeah, this
You know what? That might be what he has during like his special attacks in Dissidia.
Oh yeah, for sure, definitely. Yeah. He definitely has. You definitely get that weapon in the game. I do remember it, but I don't remember where specifically. This game also had a huge amount of extra content that you could do. There's an entire arena system where you have to capture the monsters that are throughout the world using special weapons.
Oh, just incidentally, I just found it. It's Brotherhood.
Brotherhood, yeah. That sounds right.
Oh yeah, and Khalid Bog, I've seen this before.
Yeah,
it looks similar, but it's
really cool.
It's
just
a
not
little more
watery.
Yeah, it's a little more ornate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they had an entire arena system where you had to use weapons to capture monsters, and then you brought them back to the arena, and you could fight them. But if you brought back an entire type of monster, all the specific monsters in a specific type, the arena master would combine them into a super monster that you could face for rewards.
Oh, okay.
And some of the most powerful, so like the equivalent of the Omega weapons in Final Fantasy X are in the arena once you unlock them.
Okay.
And some of them are insane.
Yeah.
Like you have to be maxed out level like 9999999 in order to beat them. They're really crazy.
It's like trying to get Knights of the Round in Final Fantasy VII. It requires a whole bunch of running around, but the end result is you get something fucking overpowered.
Yeah. Yeah, I played Final Fantasy X for easily 300 plus hours. It's amazing. I don't know what more to say about it. Yeah, but it's so good. It's so good. As far as so you said that you disagreed with me on this game. Is there reasons for that, or is it just Blitzball?
Well, I don't have as much experience with it as you.
Okay.
I've not played it for nearly as long or nearly as far as you have.
Okay.
I do like the game.
Yeah.
I don't like it as much as you do.
No.
Not because I dislike it. It just didn't jive with me the way that it did with you, which is fine.
Yeah.
You're probably looking to put it in high tier, and I wouldn't say that I disagree, but you probably have you'll have a much higher opinion of it than of, say, 9, for example.
Yeah, definitely. No, I would put this at low god tier for sure.
Yeah, like I
would put it below 4. if
I
it was
wouldn't.
my personal list, it would be the top pick.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And
But
for
for an
me, it
objective
wouldn't
one,
be.
yeah, for an objective one, that is where I would put it. Is right before 4 on the God tier. That's where I
Okay.
would put it. And I don't know where you would put it with the less experience that you have with it. I don't know.
Well, what I have played of it, I liked mostly, aside from Blitzball.
Yeah,
Man, your cat is
he's very
losing his
talkative.
damn mind.
Yeah, he's something.
Yeah, and the other thing is that I like as a gameplay thing, I don't enjoy it as much as I enjoy 5. But again,
No?
I really like I've said, I really
Oh, we didn't even
like.
talk about the sphere system.
Oh
the
yeah,
leveling up system.
the sphere grid.
Yeah.
It's
It's okay.
It's okay.
Yeah, I'm not going to sit here and say it's amazing. It's really cool that you can like.
It starts off very linear. It doesn't open
Yeah.
up until later, and
Yeah.
and that gives a bad first impression of it. It does let you do a lot more customization later on in the grid.
Yeah,
but
I
it
mean, you
takes
can
a-
have like all your characters with like almost all of the moves if you really want to.
Yeah, but it takes a while for it to get to the point where it really opens up and allows the customization.
Yep, that's true.
So
I do like during battle how you can swap out the characters instantly. though.
that's cool.
That's
Yeah.
amazing. I love that stuff.
Yeah.
And the summons are cool. How they become like an actual character in the fight.
Yeah, and they have very different summons in this game than in other Final Fantasy.
And they have a lot
games.
of them too.
And they have a lot of them, and they have a very distinct appearance.
Yep.
It-
And
the-
some of them are optional.
Yeah,
A lot of
I
them
will
are
say
optional,
this:
actually.
in terms of art direction, the game is absolutely god tier.
Oh yeah, it's beautiful.
It is. It's not my favorite. You know,
No.
I like it and I respect it. I don't like it as much as the others. That's just how I personally feel about it. But then objectively, it's a pretty good fucking game.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we can split the difference. We can put it at high tier or low god tier, whatever you think is appropriate. I will defer to you here.
Given that your favorite is in the god tier, I can't not
Yeah,
fight
it
for it to
wouldn't
be
be-
in,
it
in
wouldn't be
mine in the
fair.
god tier.
It wouldn't be fair, and people who like Final Fantasy X would also have our skulls if we didn't put it up high.
That's
It
fair.
is a great game.
It's fantastic.
It's an excellent game that I just didn't connect with as
Yeah.
much as everyone else did. I see
That's
it
fair.
and I respect it and I admire it. It just didn't personally
Yeah.
fit into my brain the way that it did for so many other people. But I still do think it is an excellent game.
For sure. One thing that we haven't talked about any of these games is the villain. Let's do a quick jaunt back and kind
Oh
of
yeah,
talk about the villain. So
that's probably.
the villain
Final
in the
Fantasy-
first game, what was that? That was
So Final Fantasy One, the villain is Garland, but it's actually Chaos. But no, it's actually Garland because Chaos and Garland are the same person.
the same person.
Garland is sent back in time 1,000 years, and over time becomes Chaos, who then sends the 4 fiends 1,000 years into the future to ensure that his future self, Garland, will be sent back in order to become Chaos. It's actually kind of a twist for such an early game.
Yeah, that is. Yeah.
I will say though, you don't really see you fight Garland at the beginning of the game, and then you fight Chaos at the end of the game. There's not really a lot of back and forth with the villain between
Yeah, it's
there.
not built up.
Yeah, you don't have the same kind of like intimate relationship with the villain in Final Fantasy 1 that you do with, say, Kefka in Final Fantasy 6 or Sephiroth in Final Fantasy 7, where you repeatedly cross paths with them.
Yeah,
and
which is
they-
the best way to build up a villain.
And they do things that make you hate them.
Yeah.
Final Fantasy 2. Final Fantasy 2 doesn't really have a...
Consistent villain.
Well, it's kind of weird. The Emperor is your villain. You do cross paths with him more than once. But he is, for the most part, a distant figure that you're working your way up to. But it's more broad. It's more about the rebellion and the Empire than it is about that one specific guy. Even though there is a one specific guy. It's more about feeling the odds of you being part of a small rebellion fighting against an overwhelmingly large empire. And that's kind of what it's not that there's so much an antagonist in this as there is an antagonizing force that feels overwhelming, like it could crush you at any time, and you are just a bug. You are a mosquito up against a person.
Okay.
And you have to figure out how to win against those odds.
Who was in 3?
In three, it's another cosmic entity that you don't really encounter until the end of the game, who has been, manipulating things along the course of the game. And it's fine, but again, it doesn't really you don't have a rival that you can go, ooh, shake your fist at them, I'll get you for this, because you don't face the final boss until the final fight. That's when you first learn what the dark force behind all of this is.
Right.
And it's not like, oh, it was this person that you knew. No, it's just a
creature
goddess.
kind of
it's
thing.
just a goddess of darkness.
Yeah.
Basically.
I should know who the villain was in 4, but I don't.
Well, the villain in 4 is a bit of a twist, because you think it's Golbez.
Right, Golbez.
But it turns out Golbez isn't actually the bad guy. Golbez is being used by the bad guy, and then turns against the real bad guy. But to this end, he does act as your antagonist for much of the game. But it turns out he's not actually the villain. The villain is another cosmic entity thing. You maybe noticing a theme a little bit here.
Yeah.
Okay. But
so not inconsequential again.
Yeah.
What about 5?
But I do like, because you do encounter Golbez several times.
Oh yeah, that is true. Yeah, he's a recurring boss.
Yeah, and he's one of these characters. He's one of the first times that you actually have an enemy, an antagonist in these games that you do encounter several times. It's like, we'll get you this time. No, you won't. Blah 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 blah.
That's
that
true.
kind of stuff. But then the twist is that, oh, he's not actually the bad guy.
There's another game in this list that we'll get to that is a twist as well. It's a similar twist.
So
I have no idea for 5 though.
Final Fantasy V, the bad guy is another guy in bluish armor named Exdeath.
Okay, that
who
rings a bell.
actually does say "muahahaha" at multiple points in the game.
Of course he does.
He is trying to send everything to the void. He is trying to nullify existence. He's also a tree.
He's a tree?
It's a thing.
It's a thing. Okay, it's a Final Fantasy thing.
It's too much to explain.
That's fine.
You'd have to play the game. But he literally turns into a tree. Like in the final battle, it's like him emerging out of this massive tree.
A tree child.
Tree knight monster, dark knight evil villain thing.
Okay.
But you do face him multiple times in the game. He is almost cartoonish. Like I said, he's got that mwahahaha evil laugh. Like it's literally written out mwahahaha.
Okay.
He's kind of goofy, but in a fun way. He's a treat. I really like the way he's portrayed in the Dissidia games. I really like. I don't know the voice actor off the top of my head, but he did a good job.
Okay.
Final Fantasy VI is Kefka. He's
the first real villain.
He's an insane clown who just wants to kill everyone and everything.
That sounds a lot like Joker.
He definitely has a lot in common with the Joker. I mean, there's the clown thing, obviously. There's I would say he has a lot in common specifically with the Joker from Batman the Animated Series, who kind of alternates between goofy haha laughter and like sinister serial killer laughter. Like he's the kind of guy who's like kind of thing. Like it's all over the place. I really like it. And I do know the name of the voice actor who plays him in Dissidia. It's Dave Wittenberg. He kills it in that game. He's so good. Also, the first villain in a Final Fantasy game to win.
Mm-hmm. Yes, he does win.
At least at first.
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't win permanently.
He didn't count on the comeback.
No.
But yeah, he fucking succeeds in destroying the world.
Probably the best villain in Final Fantasy.
Yeah.
Hard,
And he's
hard to beat him.
he's an insane clown man who was driven crazy when they gave him magic powers.
Yep. Very
And
cool.
now he just wants to destroy everything.
Yeah, and he worked for the Emperor, who he thought was the real villain, but Kefka ends up being...
Yeah, and Kefka fucking kills him.
Yeah, Kefka's like, nah, fuck you.
Because Kefka's like, no, I want to be as crazy as possible, and the Emperor's like, no, you're moving the petrified remains of the gods. You're going to destroy the world. And he's like, yeah, that's the point.
That's kind of what I'm doing. That's kind of what I'm going for, bro.
And the Emperor tries to kill him, and Kefka's like, no. I get to kill you. That's how this works. And then he does.
Yeah, very cool.
And then shit goes really bad.
Yep. Seven's obviously Sephiroth.
Seven's
and
obviously Sephiroth. Sephiroth is
and Genova, though.
And Genova, yeah. So you don't directly encounter Sephiroth for quite a while. There's a lot of like the flashbacks to Sephiroth. There's the fucking trail of blood through the Shinra building, and then you find the sword embedded in the president.
Yeah,
that was pretty cool.
That was pretty cool.
There's the giant snake that you find impaled on the tree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I forgot about that. Yeah, that was Sephiroth. Yeah.
That giant snake that you at that point in the game you cannot fucking kill. You're not strong enough. You need the chocobos to get past, to outrun it. And then you get to the like the mountain trail and you find one of them mounted on a fucking stake by Sephiroth, and you're like, oh, this guy is for real. He took this thing down on his own.
And I think the first time you actually encounter him is at the town, right? That he burns down.
Well, that's a flashback, remember?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, when do you actually first encounter him?
I'm trying to remember, because
that's weird, isn't it?
You're on his trail, but like, yeah, when is because he shows up in Cloud's visions so often that I'm like, I can't remember when the first time you actually physically encounter him is. Is it at the fucking? Is it at the ancient temple with the black materia that you actually first come face to face with Sephiroth in the present?
I'm trying to look it up, but it's hard to find.
You spend a lot of that game just on his trail.
Yeah, you don't actually catch up with him. Oh, isn't it when he kills Aerith?
Yeah, which is at that temple.
At the temple, yeah. So the first time you actually catch up with him, he's like, fuck one of your people.
He kills one of your party members.
Yeah. That's crazy. Him and Kefka, pretty close.
Yeah.
Pretty close.
You see a lot of Sephiroth before you actually see him in person.
In person, yeah.
I will say, I feel like Sephiroth didn't get properly defined until Advent Children, because it's like, why are you trying to do? Like, what are you actually trying to do, Sephiroth? Like, you're obviously pissed off that you were created to be, a weapon. And I get that, but what are you actually hoping to do? And it's not until Advent Children that he explains, oh, I want to use this planet as a spaceship to find a new world for the Cetra and create our perfect utopia for all of those who are worthy. Which is like, okay, that would have been a great motivation for you to explain in the game.
Yeah,
that
you're
came
basically
out
a cult leader.
a decade ago, yeah. Otherwise, it's like, what is he actually trying to do? Like, what is his end goal here? Like, okay, he's going to bring down Meteor. Then what? Is he just going to chill out?
Yeah.
In the ruined
I don't know how
planet?
calling down Meteor makes it a spaceship either.
Well, I think the hope was that it would knock the planet off its axis or something.
Wouldn't that kill him though? Then he can't breathe.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. It's like, what was your plan then?
What was your plan, bro?
That's
Didn't
part
think
of
it all the way through.
That's part of the problem.
Yeah.
But
Final Fantasy 8.
He definitely makes an impression.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think Kefka is definitely better, but Sephiroth's a close second.
Yeah.
The Queen, I guess, is the antagonist.
Well, in Final Fantasy VIII, the ultimate antagonist is Ultimecia, who is the sorceress that's trying to condense everything to a single moment of time. I
can't say she's a good.
I couldn't tell you all the shit.
It's no. Don't even bother.
It's confusing, and I don't fully understand everything because I haven't been late into that game for a long time. I'm in my current playthrough. I'm still on disc 2, and she hasn't shown up yet. Idea is the sorceress you're thinking of. She seems like she's the bad guy. But
Another one that they do the old switcheroo.
It turns out that she's just a pawn in
Another bait and
Ultimisia's
switch.
plan. Yeah.
Of course.
She was also the fucking head of the orphanage, by the way, that all the...
Oh, of course.
So...
Of course. It all links back.
Yeah. God.
I have no idea who the antagonist is in 9, because I
Kuja.
didn't get far enough to know. Who?
Kuja. He is another monkey person, like Zidane.
Zidane,
Yeah, and they have a shared history. It takes a long time to explain.
It's fine.
Yeah.
Is he a good villain though?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's not very confident.
He's got schemes,
Right.
but again, like he doesn't fucking impale a giant snake on a tree.
Yeah.
So it doesn't quite have the same...
It doesn't have the impact.
It doesn't have the same early impact. Later game stuff, yeah, but like they set up Sephiroth as a threat pretty early on and fairly consistently over the course of that game.
Yeah. And in Final Fantasy X, you've got Sin.
10 is an interesting one because
10's got 3.
Yeah,
really.
you've got Seymour Guado.
Yeah, who up until I don't know, for me, in my personal experience with that game, he was probably my favorite villain.
Yeah.
Because he just pissed me the fuck off.
He's also really cool at first until he reveals his true colors.
Yeah, and then he's just a dick.
Yeah.
You know? But he's just I thought he was a great villain. And the fact that you have to fight him 3 times is every time he shows up again, you're like, you son of a bitch, why won't you actually die?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's right, you're already dead. You just won't stay dead.
He's unsent.
Yeah. And the first 2 times you're not able to send him.
You gotta send him.
Yeah. The first fight with him is really hard. Really hard. It's probably the hardest fight in the game, aside from Lady Unalesca, who I think is the hardest in the game.
Yeah.
Who's also a great villain.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say Seymour is the top villain in the game. Sin is the villain, but he's not because he's your dad.
Yeah.
And he kind of wants to be taken out.
Can I tell you something funny?
Yeah.
The very first time I played Final Fantasy X, I was playing it with my cousin Robert because they had the game, and I did the Xanarkand thing, and then I got to Besaid and I saw Sin, and I turned to Robert and I said, "Okay, can I just ask you something? Is Sin going to turn out to be Tidus's father?" And he just looks at me and smiles, and I'm like, "Okay." It just felt kind of because like they make this big deal about how Jecht is mysteriously disappeared.
Vanished. Yeah.
And then Sin shows up, and it's all that seems juicy. The fact that I called it out within like the first hour, though, was like really obvious.
It does suck that Jecht is Sin in some ways, because Jecht himself would have been really cool to mingle with.
Yeah.
As a character, he's kind of a jerk, but
He's not a great father.
No, he's a bad father. He's kind of a jackass. But he's also kind of a badass. He's very Orin-esque.
Yeah.
But just not a good person.
No.
I think is the best way of putting it.
No, he is a terrible father, but a good guardian.
Yeah. And he does Sin does not turn out to be the actual villain. He's just a shell that protects the actual villain in the game.
Sin is a force of nature more than anything else.
Yeah,
And
the actual villain is
a force that some people have figured out how to direct against the world in order to maintain their power.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, because the story in Final Fantasy X is pretty complicated.
It goes places.
But essentially, the creator, or not the creator, 1,000 years ago, there was a war between Zanarkand and Bavel, and Bavel basically won the war. But the sorcerers of Zanarkand, is it the sorcerers of Zanarkand?
Summoners.
Yeah, the summoners of Zanarkand were like, "Fuck this shit. we're
If we're going down,
we're taking you with us. And they created, it was either they created sin, or they created, what is the damn name of that I should know this. And boss, Yu Yevon.
Yeah, Yu Yevon.
And Yu Yevon is the one that creates sin.
And Yevon is the
God.
object of faith in the religion.
Yeah.
And people don't know that they're actually worshiping what is effectively sin.
Yeah, but they're effective. Yeah, exactly.
And that's how they keep sin around, to keep people afraid, so that they will stay faithful and continue to keep Yevon in power.
Yeah.
Yep.
So cool. Such an awesome.
It's a very Final Fantasy Tactics-esque plot.
I love it. Oh, it's so good.
Because, I mean, that's basically also the plot of Final Fantasy Tactics. It's God is actually evil, and we're tricking you into worshiping the evil god so that it has power.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's super cool. Super, super cool.
Why don't we have Final Fantasy Tactics on this list? I mean, I know it's kind of a spin-off, but we're already taking too much time to do this anyway.
That's true. We're at
this
2.5
is going
hours.
way this is going way longer than we thought it would.
Well, the next one we won't take long on, which is Final Fantasy XI, the online MMO,
which I have never played. As much
I.
as I'd want to, I just never played it.
You know, it doesn't really stand the test of time. It is still played today.
I mean, I wanted to play it back in the day, but I didn't have a PS2, and by the time,
it's on PC too.
Yeah, but by the time it came to PC, it was like,
yeah, yeah. And I was a WoW guy. I was a World of Warcraft guy.
The other thing is that I also like. Some people have like gambling problems. I have MMO problems.
Oh, really? I didn't know.
I get really sucked into them.
Which MMOs have you played? You know what? We're already long. Save it for after the show.
I've played a few.
Save it for after the show.
I played Warcraft. I played World of Warcraft for the 1 week trial, and the trial expired, and I said, "Thank God," because I would never be able to stop.
I should not tell you that there's an unlimited free trial.
No, I know that there's an unlimited free trial, and the reason that I don't do it is because I know. Okay? I realize that I have an MMO problem.
Okay.
And so...
All right. Then we will skip this one. So this is the first one that's going to go in the not enough experience. Didn't play column.
It's apparently a very good game. It has really cool designs, has good music. It's an MMO, man, and I know that I've got addiction issues with those, so I try to stay away from them.
I just didn't get around to it. WoW was my MMO guilty pleasure. So moving on to 12. So 12 came out
in like 2006. It was a late PS2
March 2006 in Japan, and October 2006 in North America for the PlayStation 2.
Do you know who narrated the British advertisement for this game? Patrick Stewart.
Oh. Yeah. He did a lot of gaming related stuff back then. He did like Oblivion and some other stuff.
Mm-hmm. He was Death in the fucking, what was that Castlevania game? Lords of Shadow.
Oh, yeah, Lords of Shadow. That's right. Yeah. Underrated game.
Mm-hmm.
So Final Fantasy XII is a unique one because it was the first game that took out the turn-based battle system. And it kind of still had a turn-based battle system.
Yes.
But there was no random encounters. It was always, you can see the enemies before
and
you
there's
them.
No like swoosh transition into battle. It's just your characters
You're just in it.
Their weapons.
Yep.
It's very much what the Final Fantasy VII remake does.
And you can actually move your character around, I think, if I remember correctly.
Yep, you can move your character around. You can actually get out of the range of attacks.
Certain attacks,
yeah.
It was definitely based on the framework of Final Fantasy XI.
It does play very much like an MMO.
It took that and made it into a single-player experience.
And I think it did a really good job.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it as well.
See, here's the thing. There's an entire legion of Final Fantasy XII haters out there, and I want to tell you people ought to go fuck yourselves, because I see you, okay? Because, listen, I've been sitting on this rant for like 20 years, okay? I see you people praising Knights of the Old Republic for being a revolutionary game. And I played Knights of the Old Republic, and I was right there with you. And then I played Final Fantasy XII, and I was like, this reminds me in a lot of ways of Knights of the Old Republic, and you exact same fuckers shat on that game.
Yeah.
And I'm calling you out as fucking just JRPG. You people are racists. Okay?
JRPG racist.
This is the fucking X-Play, we hate Japanese games but love American games bullshit.
Yeah.
This is your fucking Adam Sessler, Tommy Tallarico bullshit. I see you fuckers.
Yeah.
Fuck all of you. I'm not done my rant, motherfucker. Final Fantasy XII is a goddamn masterpiece, and I will not stand for the slander to this day that this game gets. Fuck all of you. I love this game. You can probably tell that I am somewhat biased. I really like this game.
I would not call it a masterpiece. I think
Fuck
it is a
you.
very, very... It is a
I will
very
not
good game.
hear slander of Final Fantasy XII. Except maybe Vaughn isn't the most interesting protagonist in the world, but he wasn't.
I was going to say
he wasn't going to be the original protagonist.
Yes.
Yeah.
It has some good characters. There's no doubt about it, and
Yes.
I think the visuals are very cool as well.
It's incredible. It's one of the best looking games on the PS2.
Yeah, what they were able to do with that hardware that late in the generation was just like
Well,
it's one of those things where
they sure as fuck knew how to use it by that point, because that game looks incredible. If
definitely reminds me of how they did The Last of Us on PlayStation 3 at the end of the cycle, and
If
everyone was like,
you-
"Holy shit, you can do that on PS3!" Holy
if you
fuck!
play that game on an emulator and run it high resolution, it looks better than some early PS3 games. Not because of the polygon counts or the effects, because of the strength of the art direction.
Yeah, the art direction is amazing,
and how that art translates into a high resolution. It looks phenomenal.
Yeah,
It is a fucking incredible looking game.
I recently gained access to the Zodiac edition.
Also
I think it's called.
fantastic. Yes.
So I do plan on playing that at some point because
It's
I never
great.
actually beat the original Final Fantasy XII. I got stuck at a
Yeah.
certain point. Maybe you can tell me where this was, but I remember being in, I think it was like a skyship, or like it was either a skyship or like a really fucking tall tower, and I had to face this like huge knight in fucking a sick looking armor, and it was just fucking brutal. I couldn't beat it. I tried like 14 times.
There's a few skyship in that game. It's
Okay.
It
was a long way through. Like I was many hours into it.
Yeah.
It wasn't like the final battle or anything I could tell, but
No.
like it was really deep into it. But it was at a point where, it was in an area where I couldn't grind.
Yeah.
So I kind of got fucked basically
Yeah.
by the game. Like I couldn't go back to a previous save because back then there was basically one save unless you manually decided to save a second save.
Oh, you got to rotate your saves, man. That's what that
Yeah,
8
well,
megabyte
back
memory
then-
card is for.
Back then I was not smart apparently.
Oops.
But
Always rotate your saves, bro.
Hey, I could also say that that's shit game design.
Well,
Hey, look at me! I'm going to put a checkpoint right before a boss, and it's in an area where you can't grind. So
they should tell you can't go back beyond this point
Yeah,
or
it's
something.
bullshit.
And some games do that, but they didn't do that
yeah,
back then.
they didn't do that. And,
I will say.
And why didn't they allow you to go back? Like
Yeah.
let me leave so I can go grind and come back if I need to. So that pissed me off because I was really enjoying the game. I thought the characters were really cool, except for like I said, Vaughn is kind of lame.
Well,
honestly.
you remember how you brought up how Lulu is kind of a
Underdeveloped character,
like a non-presence in the game.
yeah.
Pinello is very much the same way in Final Fantasy XII.
He's the
She.
Oh,
See,
is she the bunny?
You don't even remember. No, she's Vaughn's friend.
oh yeah. What does she look like?
She looks kind of generic. She's just a girl. She's Vaughn's friend who's like, oh, you were off doing, you were stealing again, Vaughn. You know,
Oh, was she the blonde?
Yeah, she scolds
Yeah, okay,
him
I
at the-
remember, yeah.
yeah. She does stuff at the beginning of the game, and then she befriends an important character, and then she does like nothing else for the rest of the game. To the point that I
Yeah, that
forgot
sucks.
she existed. I remember a cinematic in which she showed up, and I was like, "Who's that? Oh, right, that's Pinello. I fucking forgot about Pinello."
That's not good.
I believe Bosch was originally meant to be the main character, which kind of makes sense because he's the one that's got the most going on story.
The Han Solo character.
No. That's Balthier.
Oh, is
Bosch is the disgraced knight.
the one with the long hair?
He's the one where it's his
Got the
twin
long
brother
sword.
is his twin brother is one of the judges.
Who's the one that looks like Yuna?
That's Pinello. That's the
Oh, that's Pinello?
yeah. Well, here let me. Let me fucking.
So I'm looking at a cast image right now. Oh wait, never mind. I found an actual one's labels. So you got Vaughn, you got Pinello. No, Pinello's not the one I'm talking about. Ash is who I'm talking about.
Oh, Ash. Yeah.
She looks like Yuna.
She doesn't look like.
She literally looks exactly
No,
like Yuna.
she doesn't.
Yeah, she does.
She
Sorry.
looks more like Lightning than she does like Yuna.
No, that is
No,
a Yuna cosplayer.
No, you're nuts.
I do remember Pinello. Balthier is amazing. Fran is amazing.
Balthier is my favorite. Is one of my favorite fictional characters in anything.
Yeah, he's super cool.
He's so cool.
Bosch was pretty cool.
He's
Larsa. Larsa was pretty cool.
Yeah, Larsa is who Pinello befriends. He's like the prince of the the bad guys, but he's a good guy. Not like his older brother Vane, who is a dick.
Oh, I remember Vossler. Were all of these playable characters?
Some of them are guest characters.
Okay, yeah, because I see like Redis.
They tag along as a temporary fourth member. Like Larsa joins you temporarily.
Yeah, Mont Blanc. Yeah, like Google. Yeah, Ondor, Alcid, Doctor Sid.
Yep, there are 2 Sids in this game.
Oh, Gabrinth.
Yeah, Gabranth is the twin brother of Bosch.
That armor is what I remember fighting.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's where I got wherever that is.
Probably
on a sky
probably yeah later in the game.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's the dude in the game's logo.
Yeah.
With the 2 swords.
And he's freaking brutal, and I couldn't. That's where I got stuck because I couldn't.
Yeah,
you couldn't leave to grind.
Yeah, he's a fucking boss though, man. Of course he's gonna be.
Well,
hard.
yeah. But like, I literally like I couldn't beat him. It was impossible.
Yeah.
I was like, well, I give up.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean it's an absolutely fantastic game, super underrated. I do plan on replaying it with the Zodiac Edition because I've been told that the Zodiac Edition fixes a lot of issues
So I can explain exactly what it does.
Yeah.
So Final Fantasy XII comes out, and the leveling up system in the game is called the license board. It's kind of like the sphere grid, except it's an actual grid, like a square.
I want to play all these games now.
And yeah, and you have the license board, and you get license points that you can use to unlock places on the grid that are adjacent to squares that you've already unlocked. And everybody has the exact same license grid that has every ability and spell and everything in the game. So you can basically do what you can do in Final Fantasy VI, is make everybody a master of everything. It makes the game way easier than it should be, and also completely removes any kind of distinguishing qualities from any characters. You can pick the 3 same party members and run them the entire game and never need to switch out. It does not lend itself well to...
Do they ever split the parties at some point? So you kind of need to.
Not really, no.
No. So you can just pick 3 characters and just run with them.
You just pick 3 characters and just run with them.
Good to know for when I play it.
So, well, that's the thing. That's the original version.
Oh shit.
So then, in Japan, they came out with a special re-release. Again,
oh yeah, I remember this.
Final Fantasy XII International Edition, which had the English dub, even in the Japanese version of the game, and had a completely new license board system, where there were jobs. There were 12 jobs, and there was a standard license board, and then there was a job-specific license board.
That's right, I remember hearing about that.
It limited characters to the job they picked. Here's the problem with that. You only have 6 characters in this game, and there are 12 jobs, so you are leaving half of the abilities on the table. So then what they did is they did the Zodiac Age, which is the version you have. That's the modern version. The Zodiac Age is based on the International Edition, but it lets you pick 2 jobs per character, so you can cover the entire license board across all 6 characters.
Oh, that's cool.
It is a much better, much more balanced experience. It gives you a reason to swap out characters, because now you can have characters who have different abilities. So it's not just, oh, I can teach Fran every single spell in the fucking game. It's, I can teach her these spells, but then I've also got these other characters. She can't learn those spells because she doesn't have those jobs. Right. I will have to switch in Ash because I've given her the jobs that give her these abilities. It gives you a reason to rotate your party members. It gives them a distinguishing feature.
Does one thing I hate about a lot of RPGs where you're limited to a certain amount of characters in your party is when they don't have XP sharing. Do they have that in this? So like if I play with character A, B, and C, do E, F, and G get XP even though I'm not playing them, or do I have to play them to get them experience points?
No, they do not.
Okay, well, that sucks.
But with the Zodiac Age and the fact that it encourages you to switch out your characters, because you will presumably want to make sure every character has a unique job. You know, every character has 2 of the 12 jobs, which means that everybody can... You can double dip if you really want to.
Yeah, I mean, I could just play the game twice and play 3 different characters each time with all different jobs.
It behooves you, and it's really balanced for you to give each character... Make sure that nobody has the same job as anybody else.
Yeah.
Make sure that every character has a unique pair of jobs. And you will find yourself swapping out between them quite often, and you will find yourself leveling up the party evenly, just as a natural course of gameplay.
Cool.
And it works very elegantly. I like it a lot. It also has a speed up option on the triggers. You can go 2x or 4x. For just speeding up the game speed. It makes it helpful for grinding.
Yeah. Okay.
So, I really like Final Fantasy XII. You could probably tell from
what about the villain?
The villain of Final Fantasy XII is interesting because there are lots of characters who are antagonists to you, but it is a very political game.
Yeah, it was the first one where I was like, this is more about like war and like inter-country stuff.
But the thing is, it's very similar to Final Fantasy Tactics because it takes place in the same continuity as Final Fantasy Tactics. Yes. So... it has a lot of... It was basically the Final Fantasy Tactics team now makes a numbered Final Fantasy game.
Right.
And guess what? They did a really fucking good job, because that's a really good team.
Yep.
I really love this game. I really love that it doesn't have a specific villain. It has people on opposite sides of the conflict, and some of them are just outright power-hungry. Others are loyal to their country, even though they know that their country is kind of the bad guy in the situation, but they are still honorable bad guys. We love ourselves a good honorable bad guy. Like Rubicant in Final Fantasy IV, who heals your party before fighting you.
Yeah, I remember that. That was fun.
He did murder one of your character's parents.
Yeah, so fuck that guy.
Well, he didn't murder... Well, okay.
Well,
what happened was
he kind of did.
He took part in the conquering of Edge's kingdom, and then the scientist experimented on his parents and turned them into freaks. And Rubicant found that very distasteful, but it was also kind of his fault, because he was, you know... He fought on the same side as the Doctor, and, you know... It's kind of like, I didn't know he was going to do that freak stuff to your parents, but I guess it is kind of my fault for helping to overthrow your kingdom. My bad.
My bad, bro.
Yeah. Honorable villain. We love an honorable villain. And there are very few people in Final Fantasy XII who I would describe, well, aside from Vayne, who is a power-hungry piece of shit, there are very few people in that game who I would describe as outright evil, but there are definitely multiple antagonists in that game, and Sid, like the genius scientist Sid, is an insane person who is colluding with otherworldly forces. And he's not a bad guy, but he's gotta go. He's messing with shit that he shouldn't be messing with.
He's just a guy. Fucked up.
Yeah. So, as for where I would put this, I would put this at God tier, because I love this game. But I also know that I can't really be objective because of how much I love this game.
I would compromise with you, and so I'll tell you where I would put it based on the games that I've played, and where I would compromise to get it to. I would put it above 9, but I would put it above 5 as a compromise.
Like as high tier?
Yeah, the highest high tier, basically. That's where I would.
I will accept this concession.
Okay.
But no, because this is our list. This is not my list or your list. This is our list. This is
average.
This is us averaging it out. I will accept that as an averaging. If this were my list, it would be in God tier.
Yeah, because I definitely agree that it should be above 9. But I haven't played 5 or 3, so I would let you decide on that. And you seem to say that
I love 5 and 3. I like 12 more.
Okay, so then that's That's the spot. That's what she said. We're running late on time, so let's try to zoom through this next
Well,
one.
that's good because I don't have a lot of experience with these last ones.
Okay. Oh,
So,
okay. Well,
Final
then-
Fantasy 13, I've played up to the first boss of that game, and then I get tired of it and switch it off.
I've played about 5 to 8 hours of it.
So
And,
here's the problem with that game. It is hyper linear, but then apparently it opens up. But that point is apparently like 30 hours in.
Yeah.
And
Well, here's my thing with that, because everyone says that, right?
yeah.
But you could say the same thing about Final Fantasy X.
You could say the same thing about Final Fantasy X, but Final Fantasy X doesn't leave me incomprehensibly confused by extremely similar sounding terms like Lassie and Falsi.
Yes.
Final
I
Fantasy
completely
X
agree.
is set up like a mystery. You're discovering this world alongside Tidus. It is
Yeah.
intriguing. Final Fantasy 13 hurls a bunch of
Yeah, it
in-universe...
assumes you should know this shit already.
Yeah, it hurls all of the in-universe jargon at you like a fucking shotgun blast, and is like, follow along. And I'm like, how can I follow along? There's menus and shit. Like, the battle system in that game is insane.
The battle system sucks.
It sucks, which is why is it so complicated? Why is there all this shit flying
And
around?
It's not even that complicated. If you can literally win at that game by just using the attack feature. And that's it.
Yeah,
Just
and
spam attack and you win.
What sucks is that the battle system looked like it was going to be really cool. Like, you had, like... And to a certain degree, there is some good stuff. Like, you have time that builds up on the meter, and that lets you...
It was like a mix of active battle system and like Final Fantasy 12.
Yeah,
kind
like
of
the more that you have built up, the more that you can do in your turn.
Yeah,
So it kind of
yeah.
encourages you to wait and then
Be patient
bank
and
up multiple actions.
make
or
small,
you could just
smart
go
decisions.
as soon as you get enough time.
Yep.
It's not a bad idea. But the
It
fact
just
that
doesn't
you-
work.
The fact that you only control one fucking character...
Oh god, yeah.
And you have two characters, one of them is CPU controlled. You know what game that sounds like? That sounds like fucking Final Fantasy Mystic Quest.
Yeah. It definitely feels like a simplified game.
It's just as linear.
Yeah.
Except apparently it opens up, but I'm like...
It takes too long.
And I had this conversation with somebody recently. And it's like, okay, maybe it does get really good at the 30-hour mark. I won't dispute that, because I haven't played the game
No.
for 30 hours.
But who wants to play 30 hours of shit to get to the good
If
part?
that's where the game starts getting good, why doesn't the game start there?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I agree.
Visually, the game looks incredible. Nothing to complain about graphically. Obviously, that's not the most
No,
important
it's a
thing.
visual fucking stunner. Definitely.
Music is incredible. The battle music is probably the best in the
music's fine.
series. I love the fucking music in that game.
It's
Okay. Well, agree to disagree.
It's
I
fine.
I love the music. It's different. It's a style. It's a different style. I really like it. I even kind of like Lightning as a character, even if she is just a woman version of Cloud.
yeah.
That's all she is.
Yeah.
But it works.
Yeah.
I just
don't care about the world. I don't care about the characters, and I didn't care about the battle system. And
I wanted to care because I liked
oh yeah,
the
trust me.
I liked it. Sounded cool.
Yeah,
And then I played it, and I was like,
it's not fun.
man, this is a lot. Like, you are... It's like going to college and you buying all the shit that you'll need for the year, and then you don't actually end up using half of it.
Yeah.
Like, you end up spending a fuck ton of money on textbooks and stuff, and it's like, I only used this twice. It feels like you're front-loading a lot of shit instead of leading in gently.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate. I think the game took too long to make, and their vision just didn't come together. And apparently the sequels are much better, but again, it's one of those things where I'm like, why did you make sequels?
I've heard that 13.2 is pretty good.
Yeah,
Lightning Returns, I've heard mixed things about.
Yeah, I that's the thing, right? It's like, why if I have to invest 30 hours into the main game to get to the point where I enjoy it,
And then there's
why
two
am I going
more
to
games.
Yeah, why am I going to do that for 2 more games? It's like, who cares? Yeah.
You know
And
what I
the
feel
story
like?
doesn't even seem that interesting to me either.
I
honestly.
feel like Lightning is a character who's better than the game she's in. Like, she probably deserves to be in a better game.
Yeah, I hate her name though.
Well, that's not even her real name. That's her like
Nickname.
That's her mercenary alias.
Oh, okay.
Her real name is Claire.
Claire.
Yes.
I'm far more fine with that than Lightning. Lightning's so generic and just.
It's
There's nothing I like about this game. I can't say anything good. Yeah, that's true. That is weird.
Those are both weather
And
turtles.
Titus, wait, no.
Which is
Okay.
with water.
Why did you have to remind me of that? Titus.
Yeah.
Oh. Okay. I mean, this game's trash, right? I can't put it low. It's trash.
Well, but the thing is, we haven't really given it a fair shake.
I mean, I have. I gave it 8 hours of my life. And I couldn't, I hated it.
I've given it.
I tried it twice. And I even tried the demo for the second game, and I was like, this is still bullshit.
I don't have enough experience with it to make a solid, actual legitimate judgment. I mean, if we're talking about purely my personal feelings, yeah, I'd say it's trash. But I haven't given it a fair shot. I fully acknowledge that I'm being unfair to this game. To all the Final Fantasy 13 fans out there.
I think the Final Fantasy 13 fans are maybe a little blind to.
Well, sure.
They want to see something that's not there.
What fan isn't somewhat blind to the thing that they love? But I don't like the game. It has never made a good impression on me. And maybe that's not fair, but first impressions mean a lot. And this game's made a terrible one on me.
Yeah, no, I agree.
I tried it more than once, and every time it's fallen flat.
Yeah. That's why I'm thinking trash. It's not that we don't have enough experience. It's that we don't want to play it because it's not good.
You know what? I once played it simultaneously on the 360 and the PS3. As in, I had them both running at the same time on the same TV.
Why?
Just using because I happened to have both copies in my possession at the same time.
So you just wanted to see if there was a difference?
Yeah, I just wanted to see if there was a difference. So I played through that first. I played through the first half hour of the game, and it looked exactly the same.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I think the title screen menu was very slightly different in some of the positioning of the elements or something. It was identical.
All right. Well, you're saying trash, or I'm saying trash, and you're saying not enough experience.
We are being unfair to this game, but we can only.
All right. I'll concede.
First impressions are, yeah.
I'll concede, but I think that first impressions are everything, and that game sucks.
Yeah,
that's my thought. I'm never going to try it again. There's no reason for me to try it again.
I will try it again someday. Games, look, sometimes games do pick up. I do think that's a lot of investment for it.
I have no belief that I will ever play that game.
I can't believe I'm being the 13 apologist here.
Yeah, I can't believe you are either. I should be in the trash.
Because I routinely shit all over this game, but I also feel an obligation to at least play devil's advocate.
All right.
And acknowledge that I haven't really given it a fair shake. But yeah, I've never had a good impression of 13. But I haven't played it very much. That's all there is to it. As for Final Fantasy 14, I've played this game for 10 minutes at a demo kiosk at Fan Expo. It seemed fine.
Oh, you don't have a lot to say about it then. Okay.
It's an MMO, and I know that I get hooked on those, so I.
So you stayed away from it.
I'm good. This game is going to be my crack cocaine, so I have to, I just can't.
I can definitely say enough about this one. So
Final Fantasy apparently extremely beloved.
Yes, definitely.
I know it's very successful.
It's very successful.
It apparently has incredible storytelling.
Yes,
but I've never experienced it because I am an addict.
Yeah, it came out in September of 2010, global release.
Oh yes, and of course,
and it sucked.
Yes,
it came out way too early.
Let's be clear: the Final Fantasy XIV that we are talking about is a Realm Reborn. It is not the original release.
Yeah, well, it's not even a Realm Reborn because there's been 5 expansions, I think.
But
since then. So this game
the point is, the
huge.
massive elements of that game were changed from its.
It was completely
release.
Overhauled. It's not even the same game.
The way that the game's mechanics worked, the way that its classes worked, all of that was changed around to be good and not just a generic ass MMO with Final Fantasy theming on it.
No, and I would even go as far as to say that A Realm Reborn set it up for success, and Heaven's Sword was what solidified it, which was the expansion.
What we have here is a No Man's Sky situation where a game came out and was incredibly disappointing to people, and then the developer said, "We understand, we will fix it," and then they did,
and they actually did, and it's one of the biggest comeback stories of all time.
Yeah, they deserve a lot of credit for that.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, it's amazing. They
shouldn't have shit the bed in the first place, but Hey, man, they got a new mattress, and it's apparently a really good mattress. That is the grossest analogy I've...
Yeah, never
I've
say that ever again, please. God, Dante's being a little bugger today.
Yeah.
I think the cat that he saw earlier really peeved him off.
So I'll have to defer to you on this because I have almost zero experience with this.
Yeah, I have a lot of experience with Final Fantasy XIV, A Realm Reborn, and Heaven's Sword. I haven't played any of the post expansions, but I've been told that they're absolutely fantastic. But yeah, the storytelling is insane for a MMO. The music, man, there's one point early in the game where
there's
they
like 5
play...
soundtracks for this game because they keep bringing in new music with all the expansions.
Well, yeah, and they also harken back to classic games like I think it's Final Fantasy IV. You know the theme song that plays during that like the title cinematic.
Yeah.
After you do the intro, there's the castle.
You're leaving in the Cecil and Kane leave the castle together on the mission. There's the
song.
out over. That
plays when you get on the airship for the first time.
Yep.
It's really sick. I was like, oh my god, that's so cool.
They have a remix specifically of that version in Final Fantasy XII for the opening cinematic of the game.
Yeah, it's fantastic. The graphics in that game are really good too. The worlds are really cool. I will say that the opening is a little dry, but once you get past that, man, the story builds and builds and builds and builds, and apparently it just continues to do so with the rest of the expansion packs. So, yeah, I mean, if you're not an MMO fan, you're not going to like this game. But if you are an MMO fan, it's hard not to recommend. If I was to return to an MMO, which will never happen because they are just time sinks, I would have a very difficult time picking between this and World of Warcraft because both, especially since the last World of Warcraft expansion came out, the War Within, apparently it's the best WoW's ever been since like Wrath of the Lich King, which was the peak World of Warcraft. That was when it had like 15 million.
That's when it had that commercial with Ozzy Osbourne in it.
Yeah, like that's when it was super popular.
What's your fucking game?
Yeah, what's your game? Yeah. So yeah, I'd have a hugely hard time picking between the two. As for where I'd put it on the list, taking into account all the expansions and all that kind of stuff, and my inexperience with a bunch of the expansions, I have to take people for their word that play it because they're still playing it.
I've never heard anybody say a bad thing about this game.
No, it's so
honestly.
good. I will say one bad thing about it, and it's not the game. That's the problem. Signing up for the game is a fucking travesty.
Jesus.
You have to go on the Square Enix membership website, which is just a convoluted, broken website of bullshit to sign up for it, and then you have to sign. Like it's a shit show to get it. Like it's a nightmare. It's not just most websites when you sign up for an MMO or anything, you sign up, you fill out your name and your address, and you put in your credit card, and you play. Nope, this is like a whole thing. It's like you get a key, and don't even get me started.
They want to get you into their whole ecosystem.
Yeah,
they've got like a music store, they've got like a manga service.
It's bullshit.
Square has for a long time tried to be a lifestyle brand, I think.
Yeah.
And those tendencies have only gotten worse since the Enix merger, I think.
Yeah. We should have a conversation about Square in the future. A topic of the week, because there's a lot I have to say about them. As for where we would put it in the ranking,
that's entirely up to you.
I cannot put it any lower than that. So that's where I'm going to put it. Right below 9.
This next one will be quick.
15. So 15 came out in 2013. Exclusively for the PlayStation 3 at the time.
It could not possibly have been 2013.
Yep. PlayStation 3 and Windows, August 27th, 2013. Then it came to PS4, April 14th, 2014.
Was it really that long ago?
Yep.
I thought it was like 2015.
Oh, wait. No, you're right.
Yeah, no, it's
2016. Yeah,
2016.
No, you're right.
Yeah,
you're right. No, you're right. These Wikipedia articles are confusing as hell sometimes. No, you're right. PS4 and Xbox One, November 29th, 2016.
That was probably supposed to be its release date as Versus 13, when that was a thing.
Yeah. Oh, I can't. That whole thing was just ridiculous and stupid.
Yeah.
It came out on Google Stadia. I didn't even know that. That travesty.
Yeah.
So Final Fantasy 15 is a weird one. So this is another game that took too long to make.
God, did it ever. It was in development for almost a decade.
I mean, and just like you said, it started off as a Final Fantasy 13 spin-off and then ended up being a full game in itself. And it's good. I played it and I beat it. I definitely played and beat it early, so I didn't get to experience all of the what do they call it? They re-released the game as the Royal Edition.
Yeah, they had like the special character specific chapters.
Yeah, they had the character specific chapters. They had a new
and
ending.
They didn't even like finish all of those. I don't think, because they're like, oh, it's costing us too much. It's like, oh, I wonder why your game was in development for a fucking decade, guys.
Yeah. No, they did finish it though. They have all four. Yeah, they finished all four. Yeah, I don't know how good they are. But they also added an extended ending and some extra content to the game. And did you ever watch Kingsglaive?
I didn't see that. No,
I would recommend it.
I did see the anime anthology they did where they showed the backstories for the playable characters, and that was it was okay.
Yeah, I know. I would recommend Kingsglaive. I thought it was really good.
What's the blonde guy? Is that Prompto?
Pronto? Yeah.
Yeah, he used to be the fat kid. That's what his
really?
backstory was. He used to be a fat kid, and then he decided to get into shape, and now he's the skinny Twinkie guy in the boy band that is the main cast.
Well, they added multiplayer to this game? I didn't know that.
So let me tell you about my experience with Final Fantasy 15. I installed the demo, and I played some of it, and I immediately hated it because of the movement. And
so you didn't play and beat it, eh?
No, fuck no.
Wow.
I played it, and I felt So here's the problem. The game is more in love with its intricate character animation than it is with making the movement feel good.
I would agree with that.
So when you turn on a dime in a video game, usually your character has a very quick turnaround animation, which is in no way realistic because nobody can turn around that quickly and just cancel out their momentum. But in a video game, you have to do that because otherwise it feels like your character
weird.
is lagging behind your inputs. Yeah. In Final Fantasy 15, when you do that, Noctis has an incredibly beautifully animated turnaround where if you're going fast enough and at the right angle, he'll actually kind of like stumble down onto his heel and then pick himself back up and go in the opposite direction. Yeah. It looks incredible. It feels like shit.
Yeah, it does.
Because it stops feeling like you're directly controlling a character and more like you're giving them suggestions on where to go next.
You're like driving him.
Yeah. I hated that.
Yeah, no, I don't blame you.
Is that unfair? Maybe.
No.
But it's how I felt about the game.
No, I don't think it's unfair. I will say that I did get used to it because I had the same impression as well. I was like, man, this control's fucking
getting used
weird.
To it. I hated it. So, like, I try not to be like that, but there are some games where I play them and I immediately hate them, and I just can't. The other thing I had was I walked into that gas station at the beginning of the game, and I walked past a completely normal-looking human... Well, it is a gas station.
No, I know what you mean. I'm picturing it in my brain.
And
there's cars in this game, guys.
Yeah, there's cars in this game. There's Weird. Like a cross-promotional deal with Audi or something like that. And Coleman camping supplies for some goddamn reason.
They had to pay for the development of the game somehow.
Yeah. Anyway,
Continue.
I walked past a completely normal-looking human man. Looked totally real, like anybody you'd see on the street.
Yeah.
And he looked at Noctis, who looks like a fucking anime character extruded into 3 dimensions, and he had like this head turn that was like... Have you ever been to an anime convention before?
I mean, I was just at Fan Expo, and there was anime everywhere.
Yeah. You know how people who are not attendees at the convention always turn their heads and have that sort of bewildered look when they see someone in cosplay go by?
Yeah.
Somebody in the game gave Noctis... Yeah, that one. Somebody gave Noctis that look in the game as I passed by, because he's got his spiked up hair. He looks like Sasuke Uchiha from Naruto. You're not going to understand that reference. But...
I do know Naruto.
Okay, well, he looks like Sasuke. He's got the exact same fucking hair. No. He's got his all black outfit and his boy band posse entourage, and I was like... God, normal looking dude, I totally feel you right now. I look like an asshole walking around like this. I feel like such a fucking douchebag walking around like this. Like I could never dress like that in real life. I'd feel like such a tool.
I mean,
and I know that is kind of part of Noctis's character. He is kind of a douchebag.
Okay.
He's kind of a spoiled princey brat, but he kind of comes into his own later in the game. I will say, in the flash forward that's at the very beginning of the game, where he's got like the actual facial hair, like a Japanese anime character who actually has a beard for once.
Yes.
And isn't just like a pretty eternally 16-year-old boy.
Or like a K-pop star.
Yeah. He looks pretty fucking cool. The beard is a good look. Like, it really works on him.
I was going to say this. That you do get to a point where your characters grow up.
Yeah,
in the game,
he does seem
they
cool
do feel much cooler
at that point.
Yeah,
I don't want to have to play through.
I totally agree. I agree. Getting to that point sucked. It does have some amazing highlights, though. The boss fights are incredibly amazing.
I like the concept of the battle system of you plucking the weapons out of the ether and changing your combat style on the fly, and having that teleport attack where you can instantly warp to an enemy and get a sneak attack on them to open the battle.
Cool.
It's a cool idea for a battle system, and I really like that. I hate the game that's built around it because the walking feels stupid, and I feel like a fucking try-hard, trendy Shibuya douchebag.
Yes. No, I completely agree with your critique. I think the characters are stupid. At least when they're young. When they grow up, they're actually kind of badass.
Yeah, they seem cooler, but that's like way later in the game.
It is way later in the game, yep. And the story is half-baked. You can tell that this is definitely not the game that they started with, as we've alluded to. They started with 13.
They had to break the connection from 13, and they don't even fully do that. Isn't there still some references to, like, Lassie in that game or something?
I don't know. I mean, I didn't play 13 enough to know if there was any. But I did beat it. I did beat the game, 15. It is great. Does have some problems. It does have some lackluster characters. It's visually insanely pretty.
Oh yeah, it's absolutely gorgeous.
I do love the juxtaposition of the car driving down and exploring the road. I think it's cool.
I will say the opening to that game where they have Stand By Me playing and the busted down like fucking pimped out royal limo that they have to push down the desert road because it fucking broke down and they can't call Royal AAA or some shit. So it's like you've got this prince and his posse pushing down the fucking car like the common man. I think that's a really strong intro. That's a really strong intro.
It was really cool.
I like that a lot. I hate the way the game controls. If somebody put out a mod that gave it like snappier controls, I'd play through it in an instant, and I'd probably really like it.
This was definitely a transition into Final Fantasy VII Remake in terms of its game battle system. This was the beginning of what that ended up being. I mean, which was obviously much better.
Technically, Kingdom Hearts was the beginning of what that ended up being, but that's beyond the scope of this tier list.
Yeah. It did have the longest boss fight in the history of video games.
Well, there's Abyssi in Final Fantasy XI, but they toned that shit down.
Yeah. No, they didn't tone this one down. That giant turtle you fight for like forever in order to beat it. I didn't even attempt it. I'm like, fuck that shit. I don't got time for that. But yeah, some of the vistas in this game are just gorgeous.
Oh yeah,
the boss fights are just insane. I thought it was a very memorable game. And once you get used to the controls, it's good. But again, those are caveats and things that you have to overcome, just like the characters, in order to enjoy it. So I definitely wouldn't put this high on the list, but it's definitely not trash.
It's a game that suffers from having been in development for so long and having to shift its focus from being a side game to a main big boy Final Fantasy game.
Yeah. I would put this game right below 8 in the mid tier.
Sure. I completely acknowledge I'm also being unfair to this game, but
Because you didn't play more than 10 minutes of it.
well, I played a little more than 10 minutes. I probably
Oh.
played it for about 25, but
out of 60 hours.
That's more than twice as long as you thought I did.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair.
But
Yeah, I toyed with putting it in low tier, but
it left
like I
a
said,
bad taste in my mouth, man.
no, trust me, I get it. I was able to overcome the negatives of the game in order to enjoy it, and obviously enough to beat it. So I can't put it in low tier, but I mean, maybe I might put it higher than 8, but I'm compromising because I don't think you would put it above 8.
Yeah, one day I'll play it, but
Okay.
it's not going to be a day anytime soon.
Just like 13.
All
right.
I wonder which one of those I'll end up playing first.
13 or 15?
Yeah.
Well, hopefully you play the next game first. 16, which you have no experience
I
with.
have not touched I haven't like watched anything other than like the initial previews and stuff for this game. So I know basically nothing about it. And
Okay, so obviously I'm not going to go into spoiler territory
Yeah.
here, because I want you to play it and I want to hear your thoughts on it. But it is fan-fucking-tastic.
I've
You
heard
do
good
need a
things.
controller for this game. I
yeah,
will say
I've heard
that.
it's a very fast-paced action game.
It is. It's not quite Devil May Cry. It's
But it's
definitely not Bayonetta.
But it's faster than Final Fantasy VII Remake or Final Fantasy 15.
Oh yeah, wait. It's an action game. It is not a RPG. Anyone who goes into this thinking that it's going to be a Final Fantasy VII Remake like or Final Fantasy 12 like, no. You are alone for the most part. There are parts of the game where you have people with you. But for the most part, you are alone, and it is an action game, a la like God of War,
Or maybe Stranger of Paradise. Why isn't that on the list?
spinoff. And it's not even like that. It's so hard to describe because it's so unique. Visually, the best Final Fantasy looking game.
Well, I mean, it's the latest one.
Yeah, I mean, how can it not be unless it sucked? The story is fantastic. They have a system in it, so like, you know, there's certain Final Fantasy games that are so convoluted you have no fucking idea what's going on, and we've talked about that, about previous games. This game actually was like, you know what, we get you, and they put a system in it so that when something is mentioned, you're in a scene, you're in a cinematic, okay, you can at any point press start, and you will have a series of bubbles appear that will be related to the scene that you're in, that will have terms.
Oh, it's fucking pop-up video.
Yeah, and you click on it, and it goes into a small 1 or 2 paragraph explanation that you can quickly read.
So
and be
I
like,
have,
oh,
I
okay,
have
that's
two
cool.
feelings about that. Number one, I think that's really cool and helpful and awesome, and more games should do it.
Yep.
Number two, why are you making games so complex that they need to have that?
I do agree with that, but
I don't hate it.
no. So here's
But I
the
hate
thing.
that we have a need for it.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. So I've mentioned
It's probably the best way of doing it.
yeah, it's the best way of doing it when a game is has this complex of a story. I mean, the story's not actually that complex, honestly. When I was going into it and people had told me about the system, I was like, oh man, it's going to be an investment. But it does such a good job of explaining things with this system, and they've also added a storytelling system where every chapter that you go through, there's this character who I'm not going to talk about, who basically gives you a quick 60-second explanation of what's going on in the world. So they show you a world map and they go like, this, and they basically tell you what's been happening during
They do
period.
that in Tactics Ogre on the PlayStation.
There you go. So it's very much like that, where it's constantly keeping you up to date.
They
so
give
that
you
you're
a
not
political
fucking
recap.
lost. Yeah, it's almost like an episode recap, exactly. And it doesn't do it in a way that's like insulting, because you know that can come across as like
You
patronizing.
just played this section.
Yeah, it comes across as like, oh, okay, I'm following, I'm getting it,
Yeah.
cool, you know. And
It
what I was
reminds you of the things that also tie into it.
Yeah,
that weren't in the
so
previous
you're
chapter.
always
It's
up to
like,
date on the terms, especially
yeah,
early on in the game. You don't really know a lot about the world,
yeah,
so it's like, what was the game that we were talking about earlier that assumed you would know everything? 13.
yeah.
So it's like 13 where they assume you know everything, but it tells you what everything
It
is
tells
as
you,
they talk
yeah.
about it, as they
God,
introduce.
that is a thing that would
Yeah.
have really improved that game.
So I was using that system constantly. I'm like, oh, what is that? Read it, and it's not like what you read is
It's
boring.
like they knew you were going to go to the Wikipedia page to try and keep up with it, so they just put it in the game.
Except I wouldn't bother with that because if I have to do that, then I don't give a shit. Like that's bad game design. The fact that they do it in the game,
Yeah,
I'm like,
that's
hey,
exactly.
thank you.
That's my point. Is they say no, you don't have to go to the Wikipedia page. Here's all the information you would have looked up when you need it.
Exactly when you need it.
Contextually
So
appropriate.
perfect. So perfect.
Yeah, that's
Every game needs this.
That's the way to do
At
it.
least
I
every
guess.
game that's this complicated.
Yeah,
And to your point of it's sad that we're at a point where games need that, but
that
at the
was
same
kind of a joke.
well, it's also not because
Yeah.
there are great story-based games
That don't need this.
that don't need this because they're so good at enveloping you in the world and using exposition in a way that's not literally just sitting there like JRPGs do,
Yeah,
where they
it's
sit
not an
and just tell you.
exposition dump.
Yeah, like
Well, even in the context of JRPGs, Final Fantasy IV doesn't need this, and it tells you a pretty
exactly.
complex story.
You figure it out as people are talking because they kind of in their discussions and everything, you can ascertain answers to those questions, right?
Yeah,
So, but at the same time, I think this game does that. But because
Yeah,
all of
okay.
the terms that they use are not terms that we are familiar with in the real
it's
world.
like magical jargon bullshit.
Yeah,
stuff.
magical jargon and just there's it's a very political game, very similar to 12.
I like that.
But there's also a lot of like references to like a type of person.
Oh, so there's like different.
Not like it's how do I put it? Like classes of people almost, but
Yeah.
like I can't spoil anything, so I can't go any further than that.
Eh,
But like
it's
different
fine, it's
classes
fine.
of people.
Yeah,
But they use words that you wouldn't use in
specific in universe terms for.
yeah,
them.
specific in universe terms that you just don't get. So when they say it for the first time, click on that bubble and you'll be like, oh, that's what that is. Okay, cool. And
Yeah,
then you go back
you're
in.
playing as Clive, who would know this stuff because he lives
Exactly.
in this world.
They
so
do
it's
it
like
in-
you're accessing Clive's brain.
Yeah, they do it in such a perfect way.
Okay,
It's
that's
brilliant.
fair.
It really is brilliant. And
That's
I
fair.
get what you're saying about like there should be exposition ways to do that aren't
well, the
dumb.
alternative to that is if you're like, go back to Final Fantasy X. Every time something about the world comes up, Tidus is like, such and such? What's such and such?
Yeah,
And
exactly.
then, like, Waka or Yuna or whoever explains it to him, and by extension explains it to the player. That happens constantly in that game.
And there are certain games that are able to do that without being obvious about it, but not everyone is. And I say this, in all seriousness, because I'm probably one of them. Not everyone is smart enough to catch on to some of those lower key references.
Sometimes subtlety does fly past, especially if there's a lot going on.
Yeah, I have a friend that I watch movies with occasionally, and we basically are on a jaunt where I watch movies that she's seen that she thinks I would like, and I watch and vice versa.
Yeah.
And we'll watch something, and I'll be like, I don't understand blah 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 blah, and she'll explain it, and then we'll
It'll
watch one of my
click.
movies, and I don't need to tell her anything; she just gets it.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean? She's one of those people. So I'm like, there are people that just watch something
And
or play
analyze
something.
it at the same
and
time.
They get it. They're able
Yeah.
to do that. But not everyone's like that. So
Yeah.
a system like this is so perfect. It's so beautiful. And I hope it's in more games. I haven't seen it in any other game since, but it hasn't been super long since that game came
I'm
out.
sure other people will do it.
Yeah, the Final Fantasy 16 came out in 2023. So it's
It was one of
a year
the
old.
games in that fucking absolute flood of releases.
Yeah, 2023 was a sick year for games
Yeah.
for sure. The combat system is very actiony. The graphics are amazing. The story is amazing. It has some of the best boss fights in any game ever. Amazing magic system that, while I think is great, needed some tweaking. I'm not going to say a whole lot about that because I don't want to spoil it for you.
Sure.
But I do think there was some obvious things that they could have done with the magic system that they just kind of didn't, and I'd never really understood why they didn't do it. And you'll know what I mean when you get to that point.
I'm gonna have to fucking start downloading the demo for this tonight.
Yeah, it's a great. You won't know what I mean
I'm gonna have
by
to
playing
leave
the demo.
the computer on overnight because it's like 160 gigabytes.
Yeah, it's huge.
Shit.
It's massive.
That's disgusting.
Yeah, but yeah.
Compress your audio, people. Come on.
Yeah. Well, but I mean, the game is gorgeous and sounds amazing. So, oh yeah, amazing music too. Didn't even say that.
Yeah. At this point, is it even worth mentioning that the music is amazing? It's fucking Final Fantasy.
It's Final Fantasy. Yeah,
Has there ever been
amazing.
a Final Fantasy game with bad music? Like the music in 10-2 is weird, but I wouldn't say that it's bad.
Yeah, no, I don't think there's any bad.
It's a very different style.
Yeah,
but that's also a very different style of game.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, I can't say enough good things about this game. I haven't played the DLC yet. I plan on doing that once the DLC goes on. DLC.
Well, I guess the game's been out for about a year now. It's just now coming to PC. I think it comes out like in a week or some shit.
Yeah, it comes out very shortly.
Well, from when we're recording this, who the fuck knows when this will go off?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Yeah, the DLC.
People will be like watching this in December and be like, "It came out months ago."
Yeah. Yeah, no. This the DLC. There's 2 DLC packs. And I have them, or I don't have them. They have them in like a combo pack where you can buy them together.
Oh, okay.
But I'm waiting for just a sale to go on so I can save some money.
Yeah.
It's like $33 for both of them. But yeah, man, like there's besides the magic system problems that I have with it, that are they don't break the game or
it's a drop in the bucket.
It's just a drop in the bucket of problems.
Yeah.
Yeah, story's amazing. I just don't have any problems with it. It's so good.
Well, you sold me on playing this.
The only problem I would have,
which is probably the best outcome we can have to any of these videos, when we convince one another to play a game.
Yeah. I mean, you've convinced me to play 3, and I've convinced you to play 16. So, I will say there is one problem with the game. So, if you didn't know, the game is basically from the same team that does 14, the MMO team.
Yeah, that's fine.
And there's definitely some MMO trappings in the game. There's some filler quests that feel very, very MMO-like and didn't need to be there. But so does Final Fantasy VII Remake. So
yeah.
But aside from that,
so where do we put it? It's up to you, because I have literally not touched a single second of this game yet. We might have to do an addendum to this after I play it.
Yeah.
Press pause extra.
Yeah, I definitely want to know where you would put it.
Press pause extra DLC for $3.99.
Man, this is a difficult one for me. I'm debating. It's either going to be the highest of the high tier or the lowest of the god tier, but I don't know. Without playing the DLC, especially, because that could like put it over the top. Damn.
This is all on you, man. You can put it wherever you want to put it. This is your game to place.
I don't know. I got to put it low god tier. It's that all good, right, man. It's so good. And the fact that it didn't sell well pisses me off.
Well, it didn't sell well. I mean, first of all, there were a lot of games that came out last year, and people have a limited amount of money. And by what standards did it not sell well? Did it not sell well by the investor standards, or what?
Let me check. Let's see. That's not good reporting. 3 million units. 3 million units.
Well, it's also exclusive to PS5 for now.
Yeah.
Probably shouldn't have done that.
3 million units out of 65 or probably 70 plus million consoles is not great, though, for how big of a franchise that is.
I'm sure it'll pick up when it comes out on Steam in short
I hope so.
Order.
I hope everyone plays this. It's so good.
The idea that... Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, don't go in expecting a turn-based tactical experience of any kind. It is not. It is an action game.
Yeah.
Fully through is an action game.
So what I was going to say is that the idea that you would make something exclusive these days is like, it's... Like
it's going away.
as
Sure.
a big company like Square Enix, that's ridiculous. Like a small company who doesn't have the time or money to do all the compliance and standards testing for multiple systems, they can't support paying some, like a small indie studio that can't support paying somebody to handle that. I understand. Massive company like Square Enix should be putting it out on absolutely fucking everything because it's nothing to them.
They have stated that they are moving away from exclusivity. So
yeah, they said that in the past, and they did it for a while, and
then they went back to it.
Yeah.
Maybe they've learned a lesson this time. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
Do we want to do Final Fantasy VII Remake or just leave it at the core games? I don't know whether we consider the remake a core game or not.
No, it's not. It's a spin-off. It's a sequel.
It's a spin-off. I would agree. I don't consider it a mainline game.
It's a good game, and I like it.
Yep.
But it's, if we do that, then we'd have to do
everything else.
We'd have to do Stranger of Paradise. We'd have to do Crystal Chronicles. We'd have to do Tactics.
And fuck that shit.
Well, I mean, I would love to do that. Maybe as a separate thing. Maybe we'll do a separate one as
a spin-off version.
Yeah.
We'd have to move a lot faster through it because there's like 200 spin-off games.
Jesus Christ, yeah.
Okay, well there you have it. Do we want to move anything? I think I'm pretty happy with where everything came out.
Yeah.
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 Okay. Let me do a.
Again, it definitely changes depending on which versions of these games you're playing. Because if you're looking at the best,
these are all the originals.
Yeah, these are all the originals. If you're looking at the best possible versions of them that exist, some of those change position. But as far as the original releases go, yeah, I'm fine with this.
The only one I have a slight problem with is the fact that the lowest one on here, technically, I mean, it's technically 2, but 15 being the second lowest is kind of heartbreaking for me because I actually really like that game. So the fact that it's the lowest on the list, I don't know if this was my list, it would not be the lowest.
Well, yeah, but this is our average.
This is our combo list for sure. All right, so let me recap it. At Not Enough Experience Didn't Play, we've got Final Fantasy 11 and 13. At Goblin Trash, we've got Final Fantasy 2. At the low tier, we have nothing in the low tier, which speaks to the high quality of the series. At the mid tier, starting at the lowest, we have Final Fantasy 15, Final Fantasy 8, and Final Fantasy 1. At the low end of the high tier, we have Final Fantasy 14 Online, Final Fantasy 9, Final Fantasy 3, Final Fantasy 5, Final Fantasy 12. And on the God tier, the best of the best, at the low end, we have Final Fantasy 16, go play it, Final Fantasy 10, Final Fantasy 4, Final Fantasy 7, and what we agree is the best Final Fantasy game, Final Fantasy 6. That was fun.
Yeah.
And now I want to go play Final Fantasy.
Yeah. It is 11 o'clock. It is too late to be starting one of those fucking games.
Yeah, no, I will not be playing any of that tonight.
This went way longer than I expected it to.
Yeah, it did. But it was fun.
It's a good thing we made this an extra.
What's that?
It's a good thing we made this an extra
Yeah,
episode.
otherwise we'd have a 7-hour podcast.
God. Fuck.
Yeah, so this has been Press Pause Extra, the first of its kind. And that was fun. That was cool. So I think out of this, we've learned that Final Fantasy is a fantastic series, and that I'm going to play 3, and you're going to play 16.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll report back on that and our findings on that in the normal Press Pause gaming podcast.
Man, that's going to be weird if we don't release this before that. I got to finish that opening animation.
You got to finish the game. So we definitely got to play and finish those games quickly. We got to go.
Yeah.
All right. If you need to reach me, I am at COE_TJ Leo on Twitter.
And I am at ninjas on Twitter. And
don't
if
sound,
you have,
don't sound so excited.
I'm tired.
I know, so am I.
I haven't had dinner. It's late.
Yeah, you did. You said you ate right before the show.
I had a sandwich.
I hate you.
Hey, look, I didn't expect that this was going to go for 10 million hours. Okay,
Hey.
I thought a sandwich was going to do it. I thought we'd be through this in an hour and a half. Boy, was I fucking stupid.
Man, don't underestimate what we can talk about on this show, man. We can go for forever.
If you have questions for our regular show, the email address is co.op.podcasts@gmail.com.
He got it. He's doing my outro.
Yeah. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and ring the notification bell. Go to we don't have a Patreon.
One day.
One
will
day.
have a Patreon.
Buy fucking whatever fuck mattress company advertises. Nobody advertises with us. We've got like 10 viewers if. We're still new at this.
It's true. But we're here to stay.
We should have started this way earlier, man.
This is what happens when it gets too late. We get goofy. All right. This has been Press Pause Extra. Now get back to gaming.
And I will go to bed.
Me too.